It is trophy season, and it continues tonight, and it will continue throughout the course of the weekend. The World Cup has begun. The first couple of matches were played yesterday, and tonight it is the turn of the U.S. men's national team taking on Paraguay at 7 o'clock Mountain Time on Fox. This is a rematch of a game that was played in November, which the U.S. won 2-1. Right now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, it's probably not how you say that, 1-0 over Canada. South Korea beat Czech last night 2-1. Mexico was able to beat South America 2-0. In the first game in World Cup history to open things up with 3 different red cards. So the World Cup is here. The biggest sporting event in the world has descended upon this region. We'll do a little World Cup soccer on the program today. Obviously, trophies at stake in other sports as well, namely the Stanley Cup playoffs. Carolina took a commanding 3-2 lead over Vegas last night with a really complete good game. And they're going to resume their series Sunday night at 6 o'clock on ABC. But, of course, the NBA playoffs are rolling to the end as the New York Knicks will look to eliminate the San Antonio Spurs coming up tomorrow night in San Antonio. That game is at 6:30 Mountain Time on ABC and, of course, can be heard right here on this radio station. Hello, how are you? Happy Friday. It is drive time, about 16 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Congratulations, you made it. Weekend time. Take a big old deep breath and congratulate yourself for showing up and doing the things all week long. We've got a lovely forecast this weekend. Hopefully you have some fun plans to get outside, maybe do some boating, some hiking, some golfing, take advantage of this beautiful playground that we have here in the great state of Utah. It's about 83 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, right outside of our Broadway media studios. And as it is every day, it is good to have you with us. Spence Checketts behind the mic today on a Friday. Porter Larson producing the program. We got a lot to do. Jam-packed show. University of Utah and Otro Capital have consummated their deal. The deal is signed. Now we have some details. Conference call held earlier today. We will get into it as we've been awaiting the finalization of this complicated deal between Utah and Otro Capital that is set to infuse about $500 million of revenue into the university. Not sure how that's going to be split up. The latest on the Brendan Sorsby situation. How about our guy, Ken Paxton? How about this guy? Texas Attorney General, who has put himself in the middle of the story, threatening the Big 12 with legal action. Our guy was accused of persuading investors to buy stock in a technology firm without disclosing that he was receiving financial compensation from the referrals, securities fraud charges. This is a bad dude. Are we surprised that some seedy, shady politician from Texas has been indicted before? Apparently, he's being bankrolled by Cody Campbell. This stuff just reeks. Texas Tech released a very boring 20-minute video, a roundtable that included the AD and the football coach, and said nothing at all. If you want to go watch it, if you have an extra 20 minutes to kill, I would recommend doing something else. But it is on the interwebs. It is making its way around the internet. But the Oklahoma Attorney General's office has issued a rebuttal to the Texas AG office, to the Big 12. Genther Drummond. If you asked me what the name of the Oklahoma AG was, I probably would have landed on Genther Drummond before I even knew that's what it was. But he is now sending a letter to the Big 12, encouraging them to move forward with some sanctions and simply suspend Brendan Sorsby. So we've got the Texas AG battling the Oklahoma AG with this story that has really dominated the landscape of college football. We'll kind of keep you up to date as we go along the program today. We are 11 days away from the NBA draft, where our local pro basketball team has a massive decision in front of them as the Utah Jazz sit at number 2. I'm telling you, man, I don't know if it's a smoke screen. I don't know if Austin and Danny Ainge are sending messaging that they like Cameron Boozer, but I feel like every time I see a new rumor regarding the Jazz, Cam Boozer's name is right in the middle of it. So 11 days away from a historic decision for the Utah Jazz, drafting at number 2. We'll do some draft on the show today as well. The Phil Mickelson stuff is awful. Man, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods once upon a time were by far the two best, most popular, most powerful figures and players on the PGA Tour. and the fall from grace from both of these guys, I'll tell you what, cautionary tale, right? I mean, if we want to get dramatic about it, but Phil Mickelson was removed from his home golf club in the middle of a round and summarily dismissed from the club, kicked out of the club. By the end of the day, the club had all of his pictures taken down. He, by far, was the most famous member of this club in San Diego, and now there's not a trace of him at the club as he's been accused of inappropriate conduct with a female employee. I hate to bring internet rumors on the show, so I will not do that. You can go look for yourself, but apparently Phil's reputation, what is it with dudes named Phil? Don't seem to be awesome guys. Apparently Phil's reputation around this golf course, I'll just go ahead and say not awesome. And Live Golf's about to die. The PGA Tour has no interest. My guess is his wife is going to leave him. What's the rest of that dude's life going to look like? All right, Chris Camerani will join us right out of the gates today. CK will stop by to talk a little college football. We'll do a little U.S. men's national team preview with Chris. NBA Daily Assist style, Dave McMenamin. What did Dave make of that historic comeback from the New York Knicks? And does he think the Knicks will close out the Spurs in 5 games tomorrow night in San Antonio? We'll do some hockey with Nick Olachek. Carolina's on the precipice of winning their 2nd Stanley Cup. And the offseason with the Utah Mammoth. And I'm sure Paul Pugmire wants to really dig into this Phil Mickelson story. We'll talk golf with Paul as the RBC Canadian Open is going on. We'll get the latest on the local golf stuff as well. And then we will go from there. Chris Camerani, Dave McMenamin, Nick Olachek, Paul Pugmire, me, Spence Checketts. All of you, the great listeners, hello. Happy Friday. How are you? And World Cup aficionado Porter Larson producing the show. Are you pumped that the tournament is here?
Yes, excited for it. As you noted, big soccer guy here. Now, I'm a fair weather soccer guy, I guess you could say. I'll watch the big ones. I'll tune into it during World Cup time. Always like to cheer for our domestic squad, but no real feel for this tournament outside of the fact that it being hosted here and around the Americas is super cool, and I'm looking forward to a lot of it. It should be fun.
Do you know much about this Ken Paxton fellow? So after Ken Paxton, the Texas AG, sent the letter to the Big 12, I just kind of looking into his deal. I mean, he's been faced with impeachment in the Texas Senate, allegations of bribery, abuse in office, was acquitted. He was charged with security frauds. Those were dismissed. And controversy has surrounded this homeboy ever since he took the gig. So if you want to get involved in the deal, people are going to find out about you. I'm going to go ahead and say not an awesome guy.
Well, and just to, back up what you said, it's just corruption, or at least the allegation of corruption, follows him everywhere he goes. Maybe there's something to that as you see how he operates. And now he's diving into the college football world. And I'll note, not doing it for free. Cody Campbell, a big donor of said fella. Cody Campbell, of course, not just a booster for Texas Tech, but the chairman of the Board of Regents at Texas Tech, who shares a country club with the judge that was involved with this case, who, of course, Texas Tech is claiming still that they're not involved with the case, yet they're hiring the same lawyers and talking publicly about the case, and we could just keep going. This whole mess is one that is avoidable, and two, pretty transparent in how much it smells. And I guess that's where we're at now, because not only has the injunction already passed, we just have to wait to see what the appeal says, and then we'll continue to talk about it. Because, there's a lot we could get into the conflicting interests and just flat-out corruption that seems to be following it.
All of this seems to be completely above board and clean of any sort of wrongdoing from these folks. Yes. I mean, I think they followed the letter of the law.
Yes.
So if you have an extra 20 minutes, you can go watch this unbelievably misguided, I don't know who's running PR over there, but Texas Tech at this point, egg on their face with the Brendan Sorsby situation. And now we have the Oklahoma Attorney General battling the Texas Attorney General in letters to the Big 12. College football, baby. Isn't it awesome? We'll do more with this with Chris Camerani. He's going to be our first guest today. But before CK stops by on a Friday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends at DraftKings, it's time now for your opening tip. Now, listen up. DraftKings Sports is live in all 50 states, and yes, that means you, Utah. The whole world is watching one tournament right now, group stage chaos, knockout drama, stoppage time heartbreak. The DraftKings Sports app is now live in Utah, so whether you're catching the early kickoff before work or the late match at the bar, you're in on every minute, every match, every moment. All in one app, the world's biggest stage is in the palm of your hand. Now, new DraftKings customers, sign up with code ESPN 700, spend $5 to get $200 in total rewards. That's code ESPN 700. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Event trading offered by DraftKings Predictions, a CFTC-registered introducing broker. Trade involves risk of loss. Market availability varies. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 every 7 days via click-to-claim issued in non-withdrawable prediction dollars that expire in 1 year, and that ends on June the 28th. Terms are dkng.co/predictions promo. All right, we've long been awaiting the deal between Utah and Otro Capital to be consummated, and it is. Okay, so the private equity deal expected to bring up to $500 million to the U has been finalized with Otro Capital. So I'm not going to read the entire release. You guys can go find it online, but a couple of highlights here, and nothing really groundbreaking. The more interesting portion of this will come as this unfolds, as far as where the money goes, how the money is utilized, and for me, most importantly, for my listeners, how will it expect to change your game day experience? How is it expected to affect you as a consumer of Utah athletics? That, to me, is the number one question that I have about how this revenue will be utilized. Of course, other questions are keeping up with Texas Tech and BYU with NIL endeavors to sign players. Of course, updating facilities. We've already seen some of the plans for the Huntsman Center. I still believe Rice-Eccles Stadium at some point is going to look different. I think it's going to feel different. I don't know this. I'm just guessing based off of my knowledge of how these things work. Things like bunker suites put in, probably more modernized concession options, some other, facelifts and touch-ups of Rice-Eccles Stadium, and probably the surrounding areas. Maybe the tailgate lot receives a little bit of a renovation. My guess is most of these things like that will be announced in the coming weeks and months. And we have to call it how it is. What that means is you're probably going to be asked to pay more for your consumer experience. Things are going to go up. Now, tickets go up every single year, but, with better concessions come bigger prices. Utah, if you missed it, the Under Armour deal is going to expire, which for me is an awesome thing. I've never been a fan of that partnership. So whatever the next apparel deal looks like is probably going to bring in more jersey options, more clothing options, more apparel options, and guess what? More expensive apparel options. Things like that are probably going to happen. But on the call today, a couple of different things here. This is from Taylor Randall, the president of the U. Quote, "This new company puts the University of Utah at the forefront of developing creative and strategic solutions to the financial challenges facing college athletic programs across the country. Utah will continue to lead out with unique and entrepreneurial ideas for keeping our youth sports programs financially sustainable and foundational to the student experience." Reports are Utah will own about 66% of this new company called Crimson Brand Partners. Otro Capital will have about 33% and change with their equity. Matt Webb is the new CEO. I don't know Matt, but I did some reading. He has good experience in the world of sports. So Matt was also ultimately asked a couple of questions. Quote, here's what Matt said, quote, "I think that's the cut and burn approach to the program." Okay, that was kind of a big deal. If you missed it a few Fridays ago, some emails were leaked to the Salt Lake Tribune, and some University of Utah employees were essentially fired. That's not the language they used. And, my understanding is these employees that were let go were informed that they would have an opportunity to interview again for their job under Crimson Brand Partners. Okay, so Matt was asked about this, quote, cut and burn approach to the program, and he said, quote, "I think that's the exact opposite of what we're going to do here. The thesis for us is we have this incredibly powerful brand, and we're just going to pour more into it. We're going to pour more capital, more resources, and more people into it. What you're going to see is basically content and experiences that the fans want and delivering it to them in a way that they're going to be able to enjoy. I'll just pause here real quick, which means more expensive. Our thesis is if we can build this incredibly powerful brand through in-game experience, activation, concessions, and content, you're going to have this umbrella effect, okay? So that kind of underscores what I said earlier. I would anticipate, as a result of this thing finally being across the finish line, some announcements made about endeavors, construction, additions, facelifts, whatever, to the facilities, and then, maybe better parking, maybe better tailgate, who knows, right? Things like that. And then you're going to be asked to pay for it. That's how this works. They're not just doing it to keep the price points the same, and Ocho Capital or any other private equity company isn't going to write you a check for $500 million without the expectation that in a few years they will see their return. Okay, so again, Utah about 66%, Ocho Capital about 33%. It was announced that Mark Harlan will be the chair of the new company's board. This new CEO that we'll hopefully get to know, maybe we'll have Matt Webb on the show. He's the former vice president of corporate sponsorships for both the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans. So there you go. A lot more to this. And if you want to look at the entire press release, it is up online. So they outlined their new leadership, and they answered some of the questions that were asked. I'll end with this. And this is from the Trib. After laying off some employees as part of the restructuring, the U says Crimson Brand Partners, quote, aims to integrate approximately 15 current Utah Athletics employees and expected to grow to around 70 employees over time. So if you're going to integrate 15, bottom line is that means people are going to lose their jobs. And I'm not too surprised. I mean, I was told from the U that their, quote, hope was everybody would be rehired. Do I think that's going to happen? No. And finally, Mark said this, quote, those employees are interviewing, going through the process. I anticipate many of them will be working there, and that process obviously is underway. So we've been waiting for months and months and months, quite frankly, for this deal to be signed and across the finish line, and it is today. Utah has a new private equity partner in Ocho Capital. We'll get CK's take on this. We'll catch a quick break. Chris Comrade will be our first guest. Then it's Dave McMiniman, Nick Olachek, Paul Pugmire. Busy Friday show. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Day 2 of the World Cup, U.S. men's national team will kick off at 7 o'clock tonight on Fox, taking on Paraguay, a team they beat 2-1 back in November. And I'm just going to go out on a limb as a result of this bump that our next guest picked, that Chris Camarani is sitting in front of his television with his prediction market app in front of him, pondering whether or not he should put a little action on the U.S. men's national team tonight. Is that accurate?
I'm staring at Ryan Reynolds on my laptop. So close.
Are you watching a movie, or why are you watching Welcome to Wrexham? Why are you just staring at Ryan Reynolds on your laptop?
Ryan Reynolds, known Canadian, in attendance for Canada's match against Bosnia, Spence, which I know you have on the TV in the studio right now.
Budget issues at Broadway Media mandate that I'm following on my computers. It's still 1-0.
Still 1-0, 77th, 78th minute now. Seems to be a lot of budgetary issues going around.
Yeah, let's not dig into that right now. We'll just move on. Tonight, U.S. men's national team, Paraguay, and then we'll kind of expand from there. Expanded field. So if you win your first match, it almost ensures that you get out of group. Just how big is this for the U.S. men's national team tonight?
Monumental.
Wow.
I mean, this is how's that adjective for you? This is a group that still hasn't proven that it can be an apex team, and it's a team that believes it can be an apex team. What an equalizer right now by Canada. I hope you have it turned on, but I know you don't.
Again,
1-1.
Budgetary issues. 1-1. All right, there you go.
79th minute. LA, Paraguay tonight. This is a team that, wholly believes that they can be part of that elite, but they haven't proven it at the international level. They just haven't, Spence. I mean, we talk about this being the golden generation of U.S. soccer talent, and I'm not saying that it's not the most talented roster the U.S. has ever had. I believe it is. But talent doesn't always equate to results. And you're playing on home turf. You're playing against a team that's good. Like, listen, a lot of people looked at this initial group when it was revealed and said, like, oh, that's a manageable group, but it is not an easy group by any means, because you have 3 different teams who play 3 different distinct styles of soccer, and Paraguay's good, man. Like, this is a team that qualified, as a team out of South America, which, as you know, is, as deep as any continent in the world. So, this is when Poch's lineup decisions, substitution patterns, style of play, Spence Checketts 3 in the back, 5 in the back. What's he going to do? Like, we're here now, and everything is under the microscope, as it should be. But to your point, if you can get 3 points in this game, it makes everything a hell of a lot easier, because you're going to be for a rock fight against Australia. And then you can make an argument that Turkey is probably the most seasoned team in this group and is by no means an easy matchup for the U.S.
So last time these two teams played, the U.S. won 2-1, and it ended in a bit of a brawl. And I was listening to, by the way, you guys over at The Athletic have the best World Cup coverage going. So I was listening to, there's a video on your site. Somebody was breaking down just like the mindset of soccer in Paraguay, where they don't view themselves as artists, they view themselves as warriors. Right? Like, they want to fight. They don't score a ton of goals, but it's tough to crack them, and it's going to be a physical match. And, yeah, the match in November ended with one of the U.S. men's national players in a headlock. So are we in for a bit of a fight tonight?
I think so. I mean, listen, if you're Paraguay, let's pretend like we're from Paraguay for a second, which sounds awesome. I've always wanted to go to Asuncion. But you are playing the host nation on their turf in the first game of World Cup. So it would behoove you to mix it up, muck it up a little bit, introduce a little Dunsethery, as they say. So Paraguay, a very talented team, but I don't think they're going to sit back and want to tiki-taka around the U.S. They're going to want to muck things up a little bit, especially because they know that the strength of this team, and the only way this team really feels comfortable, is when they have the attack coming. Like, you mentioning what somebody at The Athletic described as Paraguay, you could have made that argument about the U.S. men's national team for the better part of the last 3 decades. So the irony is very thick.
Now, again, you tell me, our strength is thought to be I guess we're calling him Jedi Robinson. Okay, so we've got our guy Jedi Robinson.
He calls himself Jedi, Spence, which I think
Oh.
is the antithesis of what Jedis are. But when you score worldly like that, when he did the other day against Germany, I guess you can call yourself whatever you want for the time being.
No, you can't. That's not allowed.
You can't.
George,
You're right.
George
You're right.
Costanza wanted T-Bone. He's Coco the monkey. You can't have T-Bone. It's already taken. Anyway, but I guess that's what we're going with. So Robinson on one side, then Serginho Dest on the other, right? That seems to be where we're strong on the flanks. And then, our best players are clearly in the attack. Pochettino took like 5 or 6 center backs. None of them are all that great. And then we have an MLS keeper in between the pipes, I think. I think he's going Freeze instead of Turner. So
Turner's back. Turner's back in MLS. So you're technically.
Oh, so either way.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, either way. Yep.
I don't feel like that's an awesome thing, all due respect to our MLS friends.
Well, I mean, historically, the U.S. have produced great goalkeepers. It's just ironic that this generation that happened to produce a plethora of talented technical midfielders and attacking players was not able to produce a goalkeeper of the caliber of a, Casey Keller or Tim Howard or Brad Friedel. It's just ironic.
All of that to say is, where are we strong and where are we weak?
Weak in the back, but I think it's weirdly by design. I think this team is going to have to beat teams 3-2, 3-1. I don't think you'll see this team shut a single team out in this tournament. And that's not to say that they won't win games and not to say that they can't advance, but it's the way they're set up. They are designed to be an attacking, aggressive, foot on the gas pedal type team because they have the horses to do it. But conversely, when that happens and the ball turns over, like how Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson are basically second wingers as fullbacks. So when you have 8 guys pushed up and the ball turns over, you're obviously going to be susceptible to the counter. But listen, this is the type of roster that I think a lot of American soccer fans have been clamoring for decades. It's like it used to be like, let's just defend and let Landon or Clint make some magic. Now it's like you have lots of players who are positionally versatile, who can make an impact at several different spots on the pitch, but like you're also going to be open to, cracks. And as we saw just even in these last 2 friendlies, the cracks will show up.
I've decided Dest is my guy. That's my guy.
Really?
Yeah,
I would have
like
never
him.
guessed that. I would have guessed like Weston McKennie would have been like he reeks like of like 90s Knicks energy.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
Like Grandmama Johnson type, like very good. Can't really afford to take him off the field, but is not afraid to mix it up. But I think I'm not trying to tell you, but I think I'm right.
Yeah, no, that actually tracks. What I like about him is he's not afraid to take on defenders like one-on-one, right? He rarely like passes back. He's trying to beat you. I just like that kid's attitude.
Very good, and a hell of a finisher. I can finish with both feet, and like this is a kid who plays right back primarily for his club team in the Netherlands, but like for Poch, like he's a straight up winger and he's talented enough to do so. And as you saw, in these last 2 friendlies, he is tremendously effective. So yes, I guess we should say that like Dest is maybe your FIFA favorite player, but like a real life player is McKennie for me for you.
Okay, I can ride with that. That actually tracks because right now OG's my guy for the Knicks, and he's got a little Larry Johnson, OG Anunoby, so I like that. All right. Who is your pick give me a pick to win it, and then give me a wild card underdog you think who has a shot?
Ooh. This is probably going to historically blow up in my face because it's a team that can historically blow up. I just think France. Yeah. I just think it's France. I mean, if Mbappe's healthy, if his head's screwed on right, they just have so much talent, man, that it's like freaky. I know we talked about Spain being in the mix as well, and this is kind of the second iteration of their famed tiki-taka era. But I'm going to go with France, even though I could conceivably see them blowing up and exiting out, in the round of 16 or the knockout stage. I will say from a underdog perspective, I'm going to stay French-ish because of colonialism. Morocco is going to be my underdog. African Cup of Nations champions, even though it was very controversial in their final against Senegal. very talented group of young players. I know about Ashraf Hakimi, one of the best right backs in the world,
Hell
playing
yes.
for PSG. So I'm going to go Morocco, and all my friends who've been to Morocco have nothing but great things to say about it.
On the bucket list, I'd like to see Morocco as well. I little plug here, Talkin' Real, episode 15. I know you watched, but Tony Beltran was my guest. Tony had an interesting angle that the South American teams are being overlooked because of the conditions, because of the hot weather in certain cities. And also, obviously down in Mexico, they've got
altitude,
crazy altitude, right? And I think I think the 3 highest altitude stadiums are in Mexico. So any of the South American teams, probably Argentina would be the answer there, right?
Argentina. I mean, will Brazil show up for the first time in a generation? I mean, it's weird to think, Spence, that like there's literally an entire 20-year gap of soccer fans that have never seen Brazil operate at their full capacity the way we were luckily able to do and see in 98 and 2002.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Colombia is fun. I mean, listen, man, we also have so many teams, man. Like that also can't be understated as well. This is not your typical World Cup where there's 32 teams. There's an additional 16 teams, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, Tony makes a good point with the conditions. Argentina is probably the easy pick out of South America just because they're the reigning champs. What does Messi look like with that team, even though he's, at his age, but still operating at that capacity? I think Argentina is the easy answer. I would love to see Brazil go off, but I don't know if they have the capability to do so.
The team with the shortest odds who's never won it is Portugal. What do you make of that?
I mean, they're still starting Ronaldo, and I think that's a problem because I do think they're talented enough, and not to say that one of the greatest players ever is a hindrance, but it's like the guy in indoor who's like just looking to cherry pick goals and he's good enough to do it, but it's kind of like, come on, dude, it's a Monday night and it's 10 o'clock. Like, why don't you play with the rest of your team? That's what Portugal has to face when they have Ronaldo in the starting 11 and on the field. But we'll see. I mean, like they also are kind of in the midst of like writing out a golden generation, so to speak, with Ronaldo aging out, but also having a bunch of really talented players that are of similar age. They do have some young players in the mix as well. But there are just so many teams, Spence. And it's not a bad thing. We have lots of reasons not to work over the next 6 weeks.
Well, I mean, isn't that the life of a writer? Isn't that how it goes anyway?
Life of a writer and a sports radio host, yeah.
Oh, bro, this is masonry. You don't want to do this. I'm grinding every day to entertain the community. You know that. I believe if the U.S. wins the group, their most likely first knockout round opponent is Belgium. Shout out Kyle Beckerman, should have started. Oh, by the way, I'll use this opportunity on the pod next week, KB5.
Whoa, yep. The captain?
The captain himself. But so let's just have a fun little hypothetical. U.S. wins the group. Belgium's the first team they play in the knockout round. What sort of chance do you give the U.S. to advance?
Well, do you remember what happened against Belgium just a few months ago?
I do. It was not great, Bob.
They dropped 5 at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. I think if I'm thinking about the type of player that can captivate an entire world that maybe the world doesn't know about, it's a guy who plays for Belgium, and his name's Jeremy Doku, who plays for Manchester City. Most of the soccer world might know who he is, but the dude was basically unguardable for the U.S. last year, and he has a tremendous blend of speed and just technical ability. So if the U.S. conceivably was to match up against Belgium, I would just have to go with Belgium simply in the fact that Jeremy Doku is that good and he's shown that he can take over games. And I don't know if Poch is the type of coach that would be willing to alter his type of approach in this theoretical scenario to basically eliminate a player of his caliber. But it would be fun to see. I mean, listen, we all remember Belgium in Brazil. Yeah, as you mentioned, with Kyle not starting, it was a game where Tim Howard had to save 15 shots in order for the U.S. to be in the mix.
I actually misspoke. I have the scenarios in front of me. So if the U.S. wins Group D, they're going to face the third-place team from a bunch of different groups. The highest projections are Canada, Bosnia, or Ecuador? Of those three teams, who do we want to see in the knockout round?
Ecuador.
Okay.
Canada's had the U.S.'s number in recent years after the U.S. obviously has really dominated that from a one-sided perspective for a long time. Bosnia's good. I mean, they're going to draw with Canada in the first game in Toronto. Nothing against Ecuador. I just think that would be your most ideal matchup.
And if they finish second in the group, the most likely opponents are Belgium, which you already talked about, or Egypt. What about that?
Well, it's Mohamed Salah's last ride. Egypt, listen, the World Cup in America is silly and going to be bad for a lot of reasons. But the fact that like some of these teams are staying or having their camps in the most random of places. Do you know where Egypt's home base is during this World Cup?
Peoria, Illinois. No. Well, why the hell would I know
that? Spokane, Washington, bro.
Huh.
Like Mohamed Salah, one of the best players in the world, is just hanging out in Spokane. It's just funny to me. It's like Algeria's in Lawrence, Kansas, and like they're going viral because everyone's just stoked that Algeria's in Lawrence, Kansas. But Egypt's good enough to give the U.S. fits. I'm just glad that the U.S. potentially will not face Iran, but who knows? We'll see.
Just Mo Salah rolling into a Sinclair in Spokane to grab a Snickers, and no one would know who he was.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up because somebody posted a video of Lamine Yamal, who is like the next star talent in world soccer, who plays for Spain and Barcelona, and he's just hanging out at a Walmart in Georgia, just like by himself in his baggy pants.
Is he the kid? He's like 18 or something?
Right? Yeah. The kid who was on 60 Minutes who has like the braces.
That's
and he looks like he's 15. Yeah, dude's just at Walmart, just hanging out.
Totally forgot that with the expanded field, the U.S. could also advance as a third-place team. But in that scenario, the projections are Germany, France, or Portugal, and we're just going home.
I mean, France, yes. Germany, probably yes. Portugal, give them a shot.
All right. I know you want to chime in on the Brendan Sorsby stuff. I know you've been pining at the bit to jump over there. We have the Oklahoma AD now sending a letter to the Big 12 calling them to suspend Sorsby. We have the Texas AG, who is not a great dude. Okay, I've learned a lot about this buddy. Multiple fraud, not convictions, but he was charged with securities fraud, bribery while he was in office. Apparently, his biggest booster is Cody Campbell. So. Porter found out that they share a country club with the judge. So all of this is clearly above board so far. How does it end, Chris? Read the tea leaves here. How does this ultimately end?
By reports that everyone in the Big 12, meaning 15 other institutions, are irate that Brendan Sorsby is being able to play. I kind of have to wait and see what the next couple months show us before I'm convinced that Sorsby will play, because I do think there are plenty of, off ramps. Whether that ends in litigation remains to be seen. They likely would happen, but I don't think it's a 100% foolproof guarantee that Brendan Sorsby is suiting up in Game 3 for Texas Tech this fall. I still think there are ways for things to get a little more silly, a little more wild, a little more hairy. But this is where we find ourselves, man. And if we cannot, if this is the hill that does not change anything, if this is the hill that folks at Texas Tech are willing to die on, then I don't know what's going to change. And I was lucky enough to get a cool, assignment, which I did not tweet out. So you're going to be mad at me, but they had me basically go back and dive into the recent history of judges in local municipalities who happen to get the cases that are filed by these player plaintiffs, and just how commonplace it's becoming. It's called forum shopping. I talked to a bunch of experts, learned a lot, but and how many of these judges went to these schools or have skin in the game. What's crazy, Spence, is that if you would have asked me, would Brendan Sorsby have a shot of having his injunction approved by a judge, I would have said, yeah, but maybe if the judge was a Texas Tech alum. The judge recused himself. He said He told the Lubbock Avalanche Journal in an interview after recusing himself, he's like, I just can't do it. It would compromise the court and everything that I stand for, so I recuse myself. The fact that he had this injunction granted by another judge who's been retired for 14 years, I was left as stunned as anybody. Long-winded way of saying I don't know where we go from here, but I do think we have plenty more twists and turns.
I would be really interested to hear what you found out. Canada almost scored at the death. They didn't, so that ends in a 1-1 draw. Because the new playbook for these players, at least from the outside looking in, it does feel like they've got enough money in their pocket to call a Jeffrey Kessler. And look, all of these powerful attorneys have just connections around the legal community. A lot of judges used to be lawyers. Maybe they went to law school together. Maybe they were on cases together. And it seems like these lawyers will call around to find the judge wherever they can find it in the district that will actually give them what they're looking for. And then they just go file there and get the deal. I mean, I know you love the term reductive. That's rather reductive. But is that generally speaking what's going on?
It's Occam's razor. It makes sense for the plaintiff to file where they are, especially if you're a college athlete. And so many, the wild thing about this whole thing, Spence, is that so many of these cases have come in very college-specific towns. It's not like this has been UCLA's quarterback or Cal's quarterback or UW's quarterback, where you file in a huge urban city. These are lawsuits that are being filed in small college towns. It started, and I guess Diego Pavia is like kind of the launching off point for this. And Nashville's not a small town, but he filed in Nashville. And then ever since, it's been, Joey Aguilar, Tennessee. It's been the basketball player, Charles Bediako in Tuscaloosa. It's been Brendan Sorsby in Lubbock, and so on and so forth. So you have the ability to file wherever you want. And it's not like every time the result goes in favor of the plaintiff. Like if you remember, the Tennessee judge who oversaw Joey Aguilar's case, basically admitted that he was a huge Tennessee fan, but he did not grant him the injunction. Bediako had an Alabama alumnus oversee his second injunction request because the first judge recused himself, and he had his denied as well. So it's not always a foolproof thing, but the fact that this is happening in so many of these quaint college towns, it is an interesting byproduct of this whole thing.
All right. Before I set you loose, we have been waiting for Utah to finalize this private equity deal with Ocho Capital. We didn't learn a lot of new things today. We did find out who the leadership will be, and Mark Harlan will be on, the chairman of the board, and Matt Webb is now the CEO. And, the one piece of information that I think a lot of people are curious about is what's going to happen with these employees that were basically fired. I mean, they're learning how to talk private equity. I'll tell you that much. Mark Harlan said that they're in the process of re-interviewing them, and hopefully they will get their job backs under Crimson Brand Partners. I'm skeptical as far as how many of them will get their job back, and I am very curious to see, now that the deal has been announced, what comes next. The release today, a lot of language about improving the game day experience, and just to reduce that to one sentence, that means it will be more expensive because they've got to find a way to generate revenue. But any takeaways from you now that this deal is across the finish line?
Well, my colleague Matt Baker was on the conference call. I was not. First thing that jumps out to me, Spence, is the U did not release any financial information in regards to the deal and declined comment on financial details regarding the deal. So until we get that, it's kind of, everything is still up in the air to me, because we don't know how everything is going to be disseminated, where it's going, how much is going where. And I think Utah needed to get this done and across the line, but it does not come without risk. Like I'm sure, as you've covered on the show, I mean, our own state auditor sent a letter to leadership at the U in May saying that she outlined a significant amount of risk that comes with this. And not to mention, Jason Patacchio's report from earlier this week at the Tribune, when, he got a hold of some internal documents of, some employees saying that they're feeling left adrift in terms of where they need to improved from a game day experience. I think like one quote was, "Everything feels like surviving week to week." But until we see some sort of concrete breakdown of how this is going to work, I honestly don't know like what to say. I have no hot takes to give you, and I don't know if because of this new Crimson, help me out here,
Crimson Brand Partners.
Crimson Brand Partner CBP, until if because of that, if they're going to be able to operate as like a private arm and not necessarily be subject to public information, then we'll be really left in the dark. So there's a lot more that needs to happen, in my opinion. And as you know, it always benefits everyone to be as transparent as possible. Remains to be seen if the U plans on doing that.
Final score prediction: U.S. Paraguay. Before I set you loose.
Ooh, I'll go 2-1 U.S.
2-1 U.S. Why do we suck at chance?
Well, we suck at chance, not just in soccer, basically in everything. Well, that's. Oh, hey, dude.
What's up, Leo?
Okay, Leo wanted me to tell you that we're getting a swimsuit on and that we're going to go in the splash pad.
Go be a dad. Bye, Chris.
Appreciate you.
Chris Comrade from The Athletic. Interesting stuff he just dropped about his upcoming assignment. I'll be very curious to read that. I want to let you know that the Ron McBride Foundation presents The Head and the Heart Saturday, August 22nd at the Utah State Fair Park. Get your tickets and all the info at ESPN700sports.com. Text HEART to 33986 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. That is HEART to 33986. All right, we'll catch a quick break. We'll do some NBA basketball with Dave McMenamin coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. I was very much looking forward to interviewing Dave today as a result of course, the Curb Your Enthusiasm anthem that we played to introduce him, because Larry David's reaction to Josh Hart missing the layup was maybe my favorite part of the comeback for New York in Game 4. Dave McMenamin, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. It was certainly my favorite part, too. I didn't notice it in the moment. I was in the building, but way up towards the rafters. But it reminded me of the episode of Curb where he is getting the stress test and fakes a heart attack in order to get out of a situation. I will give him credit this, though. Even though it was very dramatic and he buckled up the knees and needed to be helped up by his two buddies who he was watching the game with, he did not step into the field of play. And I think that shows some character on his part, that he didn't fully make it about himself by actually stepping onto the court.
Oh, this is true. It was just, I thought about you immediately. I'm like, that rules. And you know what's wild about that moment, Dave, is with everything that happened after that missed layup, I forgot he missed the layup until the post game when he was asked about it and said, thank you to OG for basically saving me from a lifetime of regret. That tells you all you need to know, that could have been the one moment we were all talking about from that game. And because of everything else, it actually became an afterthought.
Yeah, he should certainly. He did thank OG Anunoby. He can certainly thank De'Aaron Fox because I think he became the GOAT in the wrong sense of the word coming out of that one. And I saw a great quote from Jay Wright, who obviously coached Josh Hart in college at Villanova. And Kyle Lowry had noticed, another Villanova alum, that Brunson went over to Hart right away and be like, keep your head up. Like, we need you in the game. And Lowry said that was really sums up what their mentality was at the Villanova basketball program, was positivity above all else. And pretty cool because, we can all be in situations where it seems like this is the end of the world. But there's always another day. In this case, there was 2 more minutes of game time in game 4 to play for. And, lo and behold, you had the hand of God coming in to play for OG Anunoby.
So I want to get into a few things here. Let's start with, when did you start to think this might be possible?
We were talking about it, and it was like, get it to 15 was then it's more manageable, right? And I think it was 15 at the end of the third quarter, headed into the fourth. Now, at that point, though, the comeback stalled a bit, and the Spurs were able to have enough counter punches, and it kind of stayed in that, 17 to 14 range for several minutes. I think when it really came down to the nitty gritty, where it's like, oh, they're really going to do it, the step back 3 from the left wing for Cat was like, okay, that's a wild, ridiculous shot. He fell down, and you're going to need something like that to help you out here. The pirouette from Alvarado at the foul line, he gets to gets the layup, and then the Wemby free throws. Like, I guess it was just building. But even when Brunson had the last shot, I wasn't for sure the Knicks are going to win it. So it was that was something to see.
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, I never turned the game off, but I just was sitting there shaking my head. And let's go back to the first half. How much of that was just tremendous shot making, and how much of that, I'm yelling at the TV, take away airspace, close out, right? I don't want to take anything away from what literally was a historic start from San Antonio. They set the NBA record by hitting 14 three-point shots and scored 76 points in the first half. How much of that was Spurs shot making? How much of that was bad Knick defense?
I thought it was more so Spurs shot making. I won't say that they had the most ferocious closeouts, but because it wasn't necessarily just one guy getting hot, you saw Champagny hitting threes, and Fox was hitting threes early, and Harper was hitting threes. It was just, to me, it was good balanced Spurs offense and looking for the open man. And Vassell hit some early threes. I think he had 3 in the first 5 minutes. To me, it was more that the Spurs coming with a level of confidence and sense of the moment. And the Knicks obviously caught a bad hand with Cat getting 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes. I think that threw them out of their rhythm a little bit. Brunson was missing a lot of shots early. But again, to me, where you want to obviously give credit to the Knicks for the comeback, but also have to question what the Spurs were doing in the second half, was it wasn't necessarily just them about not scoring, but they weren't playing with like the sense of zip with their passes and moving into their screens with purpose. Even like playing with a little bit of pace, like they were bringing the ball up slowly, milking clock rather than continue to play with a tempo. And I think that led to the atmosphere where the crowd believed what they were seeing was that they saw one team that looked completely more aggressive, more comfortable, more confident in the second half. And I think, that allowed, rather than the crowd get tight, because the crowd can get tight like that. I mean, people were paying $10,000 to get in the door. You start to think about, what am I doing with this investment? John McEnroe said that he was sitting with Larry David, and Larry David was a 29-point game. He was like, do we want to be here for this? Like, do we want to get out of here? Because I think the way the Spurs were playing, you saw the Knicks, even when the scoreboard looked lopsided, the eye test was that the Knicks were playing like the better team, more confident team. And I think that led to the comeback as well.
Yeah, at 72-49, I'm just shaking my head. Like, I had a few friends in the building, and they were kind of expressing the same sentiment. Like, when do we get out of here and go out in the city? With like, let's spend the night in the city a little bit better than this. A lot has been made. And by the way, I agree with this because I'm watching the second half, and they're up 20 or more. And I'm looking at Wembanyama's like average minutes per game. Regular season, it's like 27, 28. It was upped in the playoffs. And then against OKC, he started playing 35, 38 minutes because they had to have him on the floor to win. Luke Cornett is a serviceable center. He gets 4 minutes. And Magic Johnson today, I think it was on Get Up. I don't know if we draw a straight line between the fatigue and the 2 missed free throws, but he missed 2 free throws. And if he makes those, they probably win. To Mitch Johnson's credit, during his media availability today, he admitted that he probably blew that one. But your thoughts on that dynamic of playing this kid because you want to play him because he's so good, but saving him if you need him down the stretch and certainly for the next game.
Yeah, and like he missed 2 pretty decent looks, jumpers in the final 3 minutes as well on that same possession where they got that as a rebound and kicked it. He went from the right wing to more towards the top of the key. And I think you have to point to legs on some level because I don't think we're going to say that it was because he was intimidated because that he hasn't shown to be that type of guy. Like he's as mentally strong as you're going to find a 22-year-old in league history, basically. And so where you would look to it and say, well, I mean, you've been managing his minutes all season long, holding them under 30. Usually he only plays 6 or 7 minute stretches in a row. Now you're playing a 10 or 11 minute stretches in a row. It's going to catch up to someone, and especially because it is the most intense level of basketball that exists. It's the premier competition that we have outside of maybe Olympic gold medal game. But in Olympic gold medal game, it's only a 40-minute game versus 48, and so I think that's certainly a factor. And listen, Mitch Johnson has done a tremendous job with this team, full stop. And he's going up against a far more experienced head coach. And you could look to game 1 where, there's no minutes for Keldon Johnson. We were talking about it last time we did this segment. It was, I think, maybe 8 minutes. And now you look at Luke Cornett, who was such a big part of what they've done all season long, and he only getting 4 minutes. Like, that's the sign probably of a coach who hasn't necessarily done it so many times before. And maybe you ride a hot lineup, or maybe you ride a lineup because you're holding on to it too tight and you don't trust the other one, but trust what you've been going with. And certainly we're going to maybe not have this conversation if OG's tip doesn't go in, right? But that's where that's the razor thin edge of these things. And a 2-2 series feels a lot different than a 3-1 series. And ultimately you have to explain it. And I'm with you. I think I'm glad that he took the onus there because I think the noise was growing the most towards De'Aaron Fox. And, listen, he hasn't had the best NBA Finals, but it's hard to blame one guy in this situation.
And to give Mike Brown a little more credit, no part of me ever believed that Jose Alvarado and Jalen Brunson should be on the floor together against this team. They hadn't played a minute with each other. I think they were plus like 27 in the minutes they played with each other. I don't know how sustainable that is, Dave, if these unlock something the rest of the series, but I am stunned it worked as well as it did.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, I think it was reading that, Bridges, they don't win game 2 without him. I mean, he was maybe the best player on the court for them in game 2 playing both ends. But he just didn't have that extra oomph, and he needed something. He tried it with a little bit in game 3 with Clarkson and Alvarado, and Alvarado showed something. Certainly, he didn't show that he was going to have this type of performance in game 4 coming up, but he showed something, at least to the effect of Mike Brown saying, "Well, let's go with him again." And I remember there was a time, I think it was in the early fourth quarter, where OG was coming to check in, and he was pointed to Mike Brown towards Alvarado. Am I taking out Alvarado? And no, Mike said, "No, you're taking out Bridges." And he earned those minutes. I mean, one of those threes he hit in the fourth was a little bit of luck. He kind of knuckleballed it, and it kind of bounced around the back of the rim and fell through. But the second three he hit was dead eye, and they needed it, and it was almost, half a foot behind the line. And then obviously, I mentioned earlier, that spin move that he had, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's street ball stuff. That's the type of inner confidence that he's had to have, being not just in the NBA, one of the smallest guys on the court, but basically since he started playing high school, he was one of the smallest guys on the court, and goes into his bag in his hometown and keeps the ball rolling. I mean, his post-game presser was pretty remarkable. He said he was close to tears, just feeling the moment because of his journey. And that's the cool part about this Knicks team. And it also, it's why it wouldn't be fair. This Spurs team is incredible, and Wemby, I can't wait to continue to watch his career play out. And Dylan Harper, I think, is just scratching the surface of how good he's going to be in Castle, et cetera. They're a fun group to watch, and they're going to be something to all of us that are going to be paying attention to for the next half a decade at least. If they were to come back against this Knicks team down 2-0, and then this Knicks team end up looking like a failure, it just wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
There's too much about this Knicks team that is special, and it seems like the basketball gods are on their side.
Yeah, Walt Frazier said he feels like there's a team of the Knicks are a team of destiny, and it's kind of hard to argue, even though that's not really something we can quantify. I just feel like San Antonio's more talented. I think they have the best player in the series, and I picked them in 6. And certainly, with my PTSD, I still do not think it's over at all. Teams up 3-1 in the finals, 37-1. The only exception is a finals you covered, which is LeBron and Cleveland coming back from 3-1. If the Knicks get this done before you and I speak next, if memory serves, you voted for Andre Iguodala for Finals MVP, correct?
I did not have a vote, but my colleague had a vote, and I supported his decision to go with Iguodala. Yeah.
So this is somewhat similar, because I don't think anybody would argue that Jalen Brunson is the key to everything for the Knicks, but he's been more or less inefficient, and OG has been awesome on both ends. He's like 58% field goal from 3, 55 from just the floor. Do you have a vote this time around?
I don't usually find out till the day of, but most likely I will not. I think they'll probably go with our reporters that are more team-centric here. But
okay.
I had this conversation yesterday, kind of digesting Game 4 with some of my colleagues, and are we overthinking to go OG, or is it like this is a Cedric Maxwell, this is a Joe Dumars, this is a Andre Iguodala, and actually that tells the story of the series? Or is the reason why OG is so effective because, hey, as we saw even on that play with the tip-in, because Jalen Brunson is getting so much attention that De'Aaron Fox is needing to double him at 31 feet away from the basket, and leading to OG being able to streak towards the bucket and not get boxed out and have the tip-in because of the gravity that Brunson brings. And then also, let's take a step back and say, would this team even be able to be on the court together as currently constructed if Jalen Brunson didn't take a $113 million pay cut when he signed his last extension with New York in order to give the front office some maneuverability to put this team together. And I know that's not necessarily what the MVP in a series is about, but I do think it's important context to consider. And if you're going to say it's almost like a tie, right? I'm kind of leaning towards, if I had the vote, I would go Brunson, but I think OG is certainly deserving of consideration, just the same way Cat was deserving consideration after the games 1 and 2. And I think ultimately what that leads you to believe is this is a really good team. And that is a credit to the group that they have, that any given point in the series, you could make an argument for another one of the guys being the most important player.
Yeah, well said. Dave, thanks for the time, man. We'll set you loose. Travel safe and be well, okay?
All right, take care.
All right, Dave McMenamin covers the NBA for ESPN at MC10 is where you find him. Joining us live from Midtown Manhattan. Stops by today, courtesy of our friends at Uinta Golf. The Uinta Golf PGA update today. Celebrate Father's Day this year at Uinta Golf. Unleash Dad's swing with the all-new Titleist GTS drivers. Find the perfect GTS driver for Dad to gain superior distance, accuracy, and ball speed. Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there. The world of the PGA Tour is up at the RBC Canadian Open in Toronto. And Ben James is your leader through 2 rounds. After carding a 63 today, Ben is 10 under par. Keith Mitchell and Jackson Suber also are at 9 under, I should say. Jesper Svensson, Sam Burns at 9 under par as well. Brooks Koepka, Bryce Garnett at 8 under. Where is Tony after having a good round 1? Oh, dear. Oh, wow. Tony had a bad day today. Tony was 3 under yesterday. He's 2 over through 16. He was tied for 3rd, and now he's tied for 40th. Not a good day for our guy. He's through 16, 2 holes left. Maybe he can get a couple of birdies. All right, we will catch a break. We're going to bring in Nick Olachek coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the program to talk some Stanley Cup and some Utah Mammoth. We'll do some golf with Paul Pugmire coming up at 4:30 today. But coming up next, we'll kind of reset some of the stuff we were discussing earlier. There's a new twist in the Brendan Sorsby situation with now the Oklahoma AG getting involved. Utah Athletics consummated their deal with Ocho Capital today. What does that mean moving forward? So it is a Friday edition of the program, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. John Tortorella has guaranteed a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final, said he's going to leave his clothes in Carolina. Seems like a awkward choice. So the Stanley Cup playoffs resume on Sunday with Game 6 in Vegas after Carolina was able to get it last night. Going to bring in Nick Olachek coming up in the 4 o'clock hour to talk some Stanley Cup hockey. We'll also do some Mammoth offseason. The NHL Draft Combine is coming gone. So kind of a quiet time right now in the offseason. Of course, it'll get going with free agency and the draft later on in June. And then Paul Pugmire will stop by later on to talk a little golf as the PGA Tour is at the RBC Canadian Championship, the national championship for Canada up north. A little World Cup action tonight, 7 o'clock. The U.S. men's national team will take on Paraguay. Canada and Bosnia tied at 1 goal apiece a little bit earlier. Not a great look for the Canadians as they're one of the 3 host countries, along with the U.S. and Mexico. Mexico got their journey started yesterday with a win in a game that featured 3 red cards. That's the first time that's happened in the history of the World Cup. Want to let you know, got a good show coming up. I think. I don't know who these people are. But In This Moment and Hollywood Undead are taking over the complex on October the 20th. The ESPN 700 wants to send you and your concert buddy to the show. Tune in to OC this week for a chance to score a pair of tickets. All right, just in case you missed it, we have been waiting, honestly, for months, not just weeks, for Utah to finalize their private equity deal with Otro Capital. And a call was held earlier today where it was announced that the deal is signed. We didn't get a ton of information. Okay, we basically were told that, yes, the deal is done. They announced the leadership of this new company called Crimson Brand Partners. Mark Harlan will be the chairman of the board. They have hired a new CEO. His name is Matt Webb. Chris Comrade joined us a little bit earlier. As Chris pointed out, they didn't disclose specific financial dynamics here, and they decided to not answer any of those questions. So I'm sure, people at the Tribune and the Athletic will do what they can to get any more information about this. Just a couple of pieces from the announcement, because folks around here have been waiting for this. This is from Taylor Randall, quote, "This new company puts the University of Utah at the forefront of developing creative and strategic solutions to the financial challenges facing college athletic programs across the country. Utah will continue to lead out with unique and entrepreneurial ideas for keeping our youth sports programs financially sustainable and foundational to the student experience." The deal, as you guys know by now, according to Yahoo Sports, is expected to infuse up to $500 million. The Yahoo report is $500 million into the U's athletics operations. Now, to Chris's point, we don't know that yet because we haven't seen the financials. And I'm not operating off of any inside information here. I have just surmised and wondered aloud, since Taylor Randall is the president of the school and not only over the athletic department, what other areas of the institution will benefit from this as it pertains to maybe getting a little bit of revenue thrown their way. I mean, there are a lot of things that happen at the University of Utah outside of just the athletic department. There's a world-class hospital. There's obviously different departments. And as we've discussed on this show, since this deal was announced, and not finalized, it was finalized today, but since the deal was announced, the chasm between academia and athletics is nothing new, right? And I have to wonder if folks in the English department or wherever look at this and say, well, wait a second, we could use some upgrades over here. And Taylor, as the president of the school, has an obligation to everybody, not just the athletic department. Now, when you look at Matt Webb's comments today, so he's the new CEO. His name is Matt Webb. And a lot of conversations about the reports a couple of weeks ago of several members of the athletic department essentially being fired. That's not the language they used because they are learning to speak private equity. But essentially, folks were let go. So, as it's outlined, Crimson Brand Partners will manage operations of things like events at the stadiums and arenas, branding, licensing and sponsorships, ticketing and digital media. So that's kind of the deal as we understand it. Matt Webb said they will not have what is called a cut and burn approach to the program. And he said, quote, "I think that's the exact opposite of what we're going to do here. The thesis for us is we have this incredibly powerful brand, and we're just going to pour more into it. We're going to pour more capital, more resources, and more people into it. What you're going to see is basically content and experiences that the fans want. I'm not sure how they know that yet. And delivering it to them in a way that they're going to be able to enjoy. Our thesis is, second time we've used thesis, if we can build this incredibly powerful brand through in-game experience, activation, concessions, and content, you're going to have this umbrella effect. It was reported by Yahoo that Utah owns 66% of this new company through the university's foundation. University of Utah Growth Capital Partners Foundation is what that's called. And then Otro Capital is going to hold a minority stake, reportedly around 33%. Mark Harlan is going to chair the new company's board. And as I referenced, Mark Webb, the new CEO, former vice president of corporate sponsorships for both the New Orleans Saints and the Pelicans, he is going to be the company CEO. So his background is generating revenue for NBA and NFL teams via corporate sponsorships. More from Mark Webb, quote, "This isn't a sponsorship or a licensing deal. It's a real operating partnership. What Utah is standing up with Crimson Brand Partners will provide Utah athletics with the resources to compete at the highest level and do it in a way that takes pressure off the rest of the university, growing the brand, growing revenue, making game day better, and freeing up university dollars for scholarships, research, and students." They certainly are saying all the right things. So in addition to Webb as the CEO, Alex Schultz, I believe is how you say that. He's going to be the chief commercial officer. He has previously worked with the Kansas City Royals, the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans, and the International Speedway Corporation. A man named Joel Adams will be the chief ticketing officer. Spent 2 decades working in the business, working for the Arizona Cardinals, the LA Clippers, and the Miami Dolphins. And then Garrett Best is going to be the CFO, the chief financial officer. He looks like he comes from more of the tech side, the VC side, leadership roles at MetaConnect, Verisk, Cote Vidi, and Biometrics. Don't know what any of those things are. So according to the Trib, after laying off employees as part of the restructuring, the U says Crimson Brand Partners aims to integrate approximately 15 current Utah Athletic employees and is expected to grow to around 70 employees over time. Mark said, quote, "Those employees are interviewing, going through the process. I anticipate many of them will be working there, and that process is obviously underway." If memory serves, the date of these employees that were laid off is effective June 30th. So that gives you a few weeks here of employment before you have to figure something out. They're currently at this point when college football is kind of in the quiet part of its calendar. And I don't know if this has happened yet, but hopefully the employees that are not going to be brought back have already been informed so they can go get new jobs. Because if we call this how it is, the people in New York behind Otro Capital don't care about Bob from marketing who has 3 kids and a mortgage that just lost his job. That's not anything they give a rip about. And I have maintained that I'm not willing to brand this as good or bad yet because we just simply don't know. But if we dig into it a little bit and talk about what could potentially happen here, there are pitfalls that we have to discuss. But before we get there, the context I want to put on top of this is I understand why Taylor Randall and whoever else was involved with this deal did this. It's not hard to draw the conclusion as to why they went in this direction. There's an arms race going on right now that, if we're honest, without something like this, I don't know how Utah athletics keeps up. I just don't. BYU has an international fan base full of very successful alums that have started companies and started MLMs and all the things, right? And a lot of them have already stepped up to the table to write checks to support the institution. And oh, by the way, they have the church behind them. I know we're supposed to say it's not tithing dollars, so let's just say that. But still, the power of the purse in the LDS church is very much real, okay? So BYU and Texas Tech mainly, those 2 schools in the Big 12 have clearly separated themselves from everybody else in the conference. Kansas got a big donation, and Arizona recently with a big donation. And some of these other schools certainly have been able to find ways to keep up, but you're going to have to continue to find creative ways to keep up. And I think it's fair to say and safe to say that if Utah had an alumni base that was willing to write checks the way BYU does, or if they had one guy like Cody Campbell, the way Texas Tech seems to, then you're not selling a portion of your future for a cash infusion right now. And that's what this is. There's no other way to put it. There just isn't. There's no way to spin it. Utah, the University of Utah and Utah Athletics have sold a portion of their future earnings to a private equity company in exchange for a cash infusion. That's what's happened. And nothing they can say up there can change that dynamic. Now, again, without the release of the financials, we don't know exactly what this looks like. And until they announce what they're going to do with the revenue, it's hard to analyze what it's going to mean for you as the consumer and the fan. And as I've referenced, that's my bottom line. That's what I want to know, okay? Instead of buying all the propaganda and hyperbole and whatever else is being, because they're all saying the right thing right now, and that's great. That's fine. And again, let me underscore one thing before I get emails and calls. I'm not calling this good or bad right now because I don't know. We have to see how this plays out. We need to get more details. Okay, how much revenue is going to the athletic department? And then how much of that revenue is going to, I don't know, service a little debt, be put into the Huntsman Center, be put into Rice-Eccles Stadium? How much of it will coaches be able to utilize for NIL endeavors to pay players? I don't know any of it. What we were told very early on is this is not a $500 million cash infusion that will then be allowed to be, tapped into to go buy a quarterback. We were told that very early on. But at the same time, when you read some of the language coming out of the announcement, namely, keeping up to be able to compete and to be able to continue to add talent, then a portion of this has to be used to keep up with NIL payments that other schools are making right now in order to get better talent. I mean, again, have no idea how much, don't know what that looks like. The walking line from Utah, well, not Witt. I mean, obviously Witt is no longer here, but Witt is the one that every single time he had a microphone in front of him, whether he was doing an interview with the media, whether he was speaking at an alumni event or a Chamber of Commerce event, he said, if we don't have NIL, we don't have anything. Now, Morgan and Alex have been a little more tempered with their messaging, and we've had both of them on this show over the past couple of months, and paraphrasing here, but it's more like we don't want somebody to come here simply because we're paying them the most money. We want somebody to come here because they want the Utah experience. Okay, yeah, I get it, okay, but also you got to pay them money. Also, you have to be among the highest bidders. It's kind of the same thing that the messaging has come, the messaging in Provo has always been completely dishonest as it pertains to this dynamic. When they signed A.J. DeBonsa, it's not because we're paying him a lot of money, it's because he wants the BYU experience, to which the biggest eye roll possible. Don't lie, okay? Just be honest about the fact that, okay, maybe A.J. DeBonsa really liked Kevin Young and saw that Kevin Young has the ability to develop a basketball player at the collegiate level to prepare him for the pros. That's fine, okay? Kevin has proof of concept there with Yegor Demin. He's done it. We know Kevin's deal. His entire messaging is, I've coached Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and I'm the NBA guy, and we get it, okay? Every time he has a microphone, he hits us over the head with it. So if you want to sell me on that, okay, that's fine. You also were among the highest bidders. And if you weren't the highest bidder, maybe that gives you a smoke screen to be dishonest and, quite frankly, not necessarily forthcoming about how these processes play out. Because if you have the ability, if you know that one school offered A.J. DeBonsa $2 more than you did, then you can use that as a smokescreen to further your messaging that we didn't pay him more than anybody else. He wanted us, even though, again, not true. No matter what the experience is on your campus, no matter what you have to sell recruits in the year of our Lord 2026 in college athletics, if you are not willing to step up to the plate and at least be among the group of the highest bidders, not just with the 20.5 rev share that every school can use, but in addition to that, the NIL money you have in your coffer. If you're not among the highest bidders, you're not going to get in the door. I mean, Sharif Shah talked about this last year. These recruits these days are asking for $30K before they even take your phone call. So whether it's Utah or BYU or Texas Tech or whoever, if you don't have deep pockets, and by deep pockets, I am talking about NIL to pay players because you have to get the talent. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. There's no such thing as a great coach without great players. There's no such thing as a winning program without both. And these days, to have both, you have to have as much money as your peers do. You just do. So I understand why Taylor Randall and the people around him for the past year or so have been trying to come up with initiatives and solutions to put them on par with Texas Tech and BYU in the Big 12. And then across the landscape of the country, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, you keep going down the list of the biggest brands in college football, because there is a prescient nature to the necessity of being in that group, which is if this sport continues to change, which it will, because it always has, and if this sport continues to move in the direction that if you're not with those guys over there, which more or less is the Big Ten and the SEC, what's the future of your program? Nobody knows. And that's why a deal like this has been consummated, to at least give you the financial ability to keep up with your peers. Now, what does this mean for you, the fan? What does this mean for you, the Utah consumer? What does this mean for you, the person who has saved up money every year to buy Utah tickets? If you can get season tickets, great. If not, maybe you pick 2 or 3 games a year, and that's great. What does this mean for you? The people who this program has been built on your backs. What does this mean for you? Well, to be clear, nobody knows. But if we read the tea leaves a little bit, and if we analyze what deals like this usually mean in sports and other areas of commerce, the private equity playbook is to find a bit of a distressed asset in need, infuse that asset with cash, with more or less a promise, as much as you can, on the other side to receive that money back and then a very healthy return. Does that always happen? No, it doesn't. I think Matt Brown last week said these days these private equity companies are, let's just use the number 10. Let's say they make 10 deals like they just did with Utah, and they hope 2 or 3 of them really, really pay off. And if they bat 20 or 30%, and the other 7 either break even or lose a little bit of money, then that's their business model. Then they're able to make cash. So there's no guarantee for Ocho Capital, because there's no guarantee with stuff like this anyway. I do believe, and this is not a personal opinion, okay, because I have not heard from anybody that covers college football, and the guests that we have on this show are actually pretty adamant that this Big Ten, Utah to the Big Ten thing is pie in the sky. This Utah to the Big Ten dynamic is not necessarily something that most people I've spoken to believe to be realistic. But I'll tell you what it is. It is something that people up there, I won't say are counting on, because here's the fact of the matter, okay? And Brett Yormark talked about this as the Big 12 meetings have been going on. Obviously, the Big 12 has been very busy with the Brendan Sorsby situation, but the Big 12 TV rights go to market, I think, 2030, 2031. And as we sit here in 2026, 5 years from now feels about right to when Ocho Capital is going to be like, all right, okay, we've been partners for 5 years. Where's our payout? Okay, where are the revenue streams at now to indicate that we made a sound deal? So to me, I don't know that it's any accident that this deal was consummated in 2026 when these media rights will go to market in 4 or 5 years. That feels pretty intentional to me. Big 12 media rights, what does that look like in 2030, 2031? How much is left over after the Big Ten and the SEC get theirs? Will we finally get this deal passed by Congress that one portion of the idea, at least on the table, is all these rights go to market together? Now, the Big Ten and the SEC have pushed back on that, and honestly, they should. I don't know why they would ever agree to that. Their media deals will continue to be much bigger than the Big 12. So if you can get some sort of Big Ten access, which, again, I don't personally believe is on the table. At least I haven't heard from anybody outside of Utah Athletics that it is. But let's say somebody up there knows something that we don't, which is very likely, that maybe there's a possibility that that actually goes down. Then you have your solution. You don't just have your solution to make your private equity partners happy. You have your solution as far as how you're going to survive if you can be a part of that ecosystem instead of this ecosystem, which isn't a bad spot to be in. You could do worse than the Big 12, certainly. Ask Washington State and Oregon State. But if you're not in the SEC or the Big Ten, you still have sleepless nights. You just do. And this is a risk that Utah has taken. Because, again, without seeing the specifics and without seeing the financials, a lot of people that work in this space in a way that I don't believe that there are things that Otro Capital will have access to if Utah Athletics cannot make right their investment. And what does that mean for a publicly owned institution? The state auditor has already expressed her concerns. But again, back to what I perceive to be the most important part as far as what I do on a day-to-day basis is, what does this mean for you guys? What does this mean for the people that listen to Sports Talk Radio, that love Utah football? What does it mean for people that want to just go to a damn game? What does it mean for season ticket holders? What does it mean for corporate sponsors? Okay, if you're a corporate sponsor at the University of Utah, if you haven't received your email or your phone call about what it's going to cost you to have your naming rights on the stadium or have advertisements in and around the stadium or whatever they sell up there, what is that going to cost you now? There's no doubt in my mind it's going to be a lot more expensive. And look, inflation happens. Ticket prices go up no matter what. You know that if you're a season ticket holder. Every year, Utah Jazz, BYU, ticket prices will continue to go up. That's never going to change. But when you read some of the language from the release about, sports being foundational to the student experience, or as Matt Webb said, we want to deliver the experiences fans want. Game day, is going that is the emphasis of a lot of what they're saying. That they're going to change your game day experience, different concessions. As I referenced last hour, now that the Under Armour deal is gone, what's the new deal with the new apparel company? And then, of course, Utah fans want to buy Utah gear. How much more will that be? These new concessions will probably be higher quality, but guess what? They'll be more expensive, right? Will they do away with some of the lower bowl experiences in the name of bunker suites, where they're just more expensive now to buy season tickets in a suite instead of having the seats that we have in Rice Eccles Stadium? Things, I'm not saying all of this is going to happen. I'm saying things like this are on the table. So I wish I could put it in a different way. Maybe the tailgate looks different. The tailgate could use an upgrade, quite frankly. Maybe the area around Rice Eccles Stadium looks different. Of course, the Huntsman Center has needed an upgrade since like 1985. So that's going to be upgraded. Is that enough to get people in the building? I mean, we probably should ask that question, because it's all fine and good that you're going to upgrade the building. It's all fine and good that you're going to ask for more money from fans for tickets and concessions. You can't put people in the building right now with dirt cheap tickets. Like, there are a lot of things that have to improve for Utah Athletics to be able to continue to motivate people to attend games. If you're going to ask for more, if you're going to ask for more money, if you're going to raise your ticket prices and ask for more for concessions and apparel and parking, whatever it is, the old kind of three-headed monsters, food and bev, ticket rip, and merch, right? Those are your sports revenue streams, in-person experiences. Obviously, the bulk of your revenue these days comes from live media rights, as we've already discussed. But while we're waiting for that media deal to go to market in 5 years, make no mistake, the Utah Athletics will be pressured by their new financial partner to find ways to generate revenue. They just will. Hence some of the layoffs we've already seen, okay? And where is the revenue going to be generated? From your fan base while you're waiting for your media rights deal to go to market, from your corporate sponsors. unless there's some other form of revenue that I'm not aware of. Those are kind of the nuts and bolts of the thing. So my guess would be Utah Athletics is going to call their corporate sponsors, ask for more money. They're going to change your game day experience and ask you to pay more for it. But again, without the financials actually being released and the refusal to answer the follow-up questions about them, today's announcement was more or less window dressing. However, it is good news that it's actually finally done. And only time will tell whether it is good or bad. I'm not ready to brand it as one or the other. We got to watch it play out. All right, we'll catch a break. We got 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Nick Olachek is going to join us to talk some hockey. Paul Pugmire for a little golf later on. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show and say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. It is trophy season right now as the World Cup has begun. The U.S. men's national team will start their journey tonight. Pro basketball is playing for the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and in the world of pro hockey, Lord Stanley's Cup is on the line. Our next guest, I'm just going to say our favorite to talk hockey with on a Friday afternoon. Let's welcome in Nick Olachek. What's up, man? How are you?
Thanks. You're too kind. You're too kind. A very exciting time in professional sports all around the world, and really happy to join you, Spence, and get a chance to talk about what's going on. Because for anybody that has tuned in to even 10 minutes of what's going on right now in the Stanley Cup Final, if you haven't been entertained, you should probably see a doctor and get your pulse checked, because it has been truly one of the most exciting Stanley Cup Finals in recent memory.
It sure has. Well said. So Carolina became the second team to score 4 or more goals in the first 5 games in a final. The last team was the Canadiens back in the day when they won the trophy. We sit here 3-2 now, Nick. Just give me your overall thoughts on the first 5 games, and we'll go from there.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I got so many thoughts because of the back and forth, no lead being safe. About some of the storylines of the goaltending situation for the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, that is, to me, been as amazing as a story as any, and hopefully Spence, we'll have the time to be able to get into that as we kind of dig through it. But I think you just look at the talent level, the experience level, and for Carolina, finally, in recent memory, that they finally got over that hump, and that was kind of the bugaboo for them. Everybody was wondering, hey, could they get past the Eastern Conference Final, having lost 2 of the last 3 years against the Florida Panthers when they went back to back, and a lot of questions were being wondered about the Hurricanes, about their head coach Rod Brind'Amour. Did they have enough? Could they finally get over the hump? And look at what they did. And I had the honor of calling games for the Eastern Final for Sports USA. For NHL radio, and just being around that Carolina room. That's a team that is very focused. They're extremely concentrated, and they've been a well-oiled machine since day one. And it's pretty simple. If you play for Rod Brind'Amour, you're going to work your rear end off. You're going to block shots. You're going to be tough to play against, and you're going to be one of the most conditioned teams in the entire National Hockey League. And are they a big bruising squad? No, they're not. But man, oh man, do they ever play hard, and they make life extremely difficult for the opposition, whether they have a size advantage or maybe a skill advantage on some nights. But you just overall for Carolina, they're 1 win away from claiming their first Stanley Cup in 20 years. The last time they won it was 2006, and Rod Brind'Amour was a player for the Carolina Hurricanes back then. He was the captain when he raised the cup, and now all of a sudden he's got a chance to raise it again 2 decades later as the head coach. It's pretty special. And look, for Vegas, their backs are against the wall. I mean, it has been an incredible run for them. But the good news, I think, for them is, okay, now they get to go back home. They get to be in front of their raucous fans in one of the best atmospheres in the league. And hopefully, their hopes are that can propel them ahead and try to get them back into the series. But they're going to need their big boys to continue to evolve in this series, and they're going to need those guys like Eichel, like Stone, like Marner. They're going to need a great goaltending performance from Carter Hart, who in this series has shown greatness, and he's also shown being leaky at times. And so I think we've saved a couple of the best games for last towards the end of the series, and I kind of had a thought that this was these two teams were so even that they could play any way you want, that I just felt like it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to be a close series, that it was going to go 6 games or 7 games. And so if we end up, Spence, getting to Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final, I think that of course will be appointment television, but I think will just culminate in what has been a season that truly has been unforgettable, and just to see how close these games have been, and then the seesaw battle here in the final has been it's been spectacular hockey to watch, whether you're a hardcore hockey fan or whether you're just tuning in for the first time.
So Frederick Anderson brings you to the Stanley Cup Final, and Brandon Bussey, Strong Island Zone, which I learned about. I didn't know anything about him. And, oftentimes we know in minor league baseball players will toil for years and finally get a call up. And that's what this kid does. And then he gets his first playoff start in a Stanley Cup Final. It feels like it's his net, doesn't it, Nick?
It does. And, look, for him, What an incredible story for Brandon Bussey. And for those that may not know his story, he was undrafted. He played in all 3 professional leagues, the ECHL, which essentially, for those that may not know, is kind of like AA baseball. He played in the American Hockey League, which is like AAA baseball, one step below the National Hockey League. And then all of a sudden he comes in and he has an unbelievable season for Carolina, and he ends up splitting the games with Freddie Anderson this year. Each guy played around 30 games, and what a season. And then he ended up earning a 3-year contract extension for just under $2 million per year. So it was really kind of a year, Spence, where Freddie was healthy, then he wasn't, and all of a sudden now, he heated up at the right time. And then we get to the playoffs. Freddie Anderson is cruising through the playoffs, and a story that maybe a lot of casual fans or those that aren't following the game nonstop may not know is that Freddie Anderson is dealing with one hell of a loss in his life. His great friend, his agent, Claude Lemieux, passed away seemingly, I think it was, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And Claude Lemieux wasn't just Freddie Anderson's agent. And all you need to do is go online and find the interview that Freddie Anderson did when talking about it. Like to me, this is so much bigger than hockey. This has to do with a loss of such an important life. Again, there could be a multitude of reasons why Freddie Anderson hasn't dressed the last 2 games, and yes, struggled early on here in the Stanley Cup final. But dealing with that immense loss cannot be understated. It cannot be seen as no reason why. So, okay, we wish the very best, and we hope that Freddie Anderson gets through this. Whatever he's dealing with, if that is mainly it, or if there's an injury, a lot of it is kept in the dark, which rightfully so, because that's his privacy. But then, Spence, as you know, in the professional sports world, in the hockey world, it's next man up. And Brandon Bussey has come in, and he's done unbelievable. I mean, he came in Game 3, played 45 and a half minutes. He made 18 saves. And then everybody was wondering, okay, geez, well, Freddie Anderson was pulled. Bussey played unbelievable, gave him a chance to win. That was the massive attempted comeback, and Vegas ended up winning. Okay. So then the question was, who's going to start Game 4? Is it going to be Anderson? Is it going to be Bussey? And then here comes Brandon Bussey to start Game 4, 18 saves and a win. And then, of course, you got to ride the hot hand. You got to ride the guy that has given you some success. Then he starts Game 5, makes 22 saves, and now a guy that was undrafted, a guy that has seemingly come out of nowhere, a guy that is a late bloomer, is one win away from getting his name etched onto the Stanley Cup. And it's a little bit of history, too, for what Bussey has done. The first goalie to win his first 2 playoff starts in the Cup final, pretty incredible. And just to see the confidence and where he's come from, and his family's been around. There's been some interviews with his family as well. It has truly been one of those amazing stories, and one of those stories that you could only have happen in the Stanley Cup final and in the playoffs, just because there's something about this sport that always brings the best out of people. Yes, but usually will lead to some pretty amazing storylines, and Brandon Bussey has certainly been one of those. And it just goes to show too, Spence, that you need multiple goaltenders in a Stanley Cup run to win. One guy could run into a tough run of form. He could get hurt, whatever it is. It is so vital to have 2 goaltenders that you absolutely trust. And so we hope that Freddie Anderson is doing okay and hanging in there. But for Brandon Bussey, it's been a pretty incredible story. And so a huge credit to him for sticking with it. And he is such a beacon for any player, any athlete, any person who might be a late bloomer in life, and you're not picked. Okay, well, what are you going to do to try to make a difference and get to where you want to get to at the end of the day? So I think it's a story that transcends hockey, and it is if it ends up being the Carolina Hurricanes as the Stanley Cup champions, what an incredible storyline that will be.
May I ask you what the reaction was in the hockey world with the Claude Lemieux news, Nick? Yeah, well, since you brought it up, I mean, I was stopped in my tracks. I'm like, wait, someone like that? It just goes to show you just never know what people are going through, yeah?
Yeah, it was shocking, and kind of the scariest part, Spence, is 3 days before he passed, and it is out there in public knowledge, and it was noted by a lot of folks that had, some folks that had made public comments about sharing, how much his loss meant to them, and and him, having taken his life. It's so sad. I don't think sad is enough of a word. But I guess if there's something that we as a society can learn from it, and it's just so much easier said than being done. But if you're going through something, if there's something that's making you question your will to live, just know that there are people in your life that will be worse off if you are not here. Because everybody, I'm a firm believer, is that everybody has a role in life. Everybody has a reason to be here. Everybody has a duty to do while they're on this earth. And look, there's a lot of people that are going through a lot, but I just hope and I pray that anybody who needs help can go out and get it and can search for it. Because it is available, whether it's therapy, whether it's talking with friends, family. And you know what, Spence, one thing I've struggled a lot with in my life, if I can open up, is that I don't talk about my problems. I don't talk about the stresses that I have. I keep that bundled in because I don't want to make somebody else's life harder because I'm spewing my problems to them. But recently in my life, I discovered that that's a way to get closer to people. That's a way to develop even stronger relationships. That's a way to get advice. That's a way to get by the tough patch that you're going through. And it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. If you're not feeling good, it's okay to go to the doctor. If you're really struggling mentally, you don't have to keep it in. And know that your family, your friends, the people that love you, healthcare professionals, they're there to help, because the world is a much worse place when people leave Earth before they're supposed to. And so the Claude Lemieux's the news was just awful. I know there's a lot of people affected by it, and it's just really sad. But hopefully it is one more reminder that if there's anybody out there listening right now, you're going through a tough time, there are people that are there for you. It's okay to take that step. It's okay to take that leap, because that could be the difference between being happy and continuing to be in a rough state.
Yeah, well said. I mean, June is coined as Mental Health Month, so something to definitely continue to discuss and make sure that folks out there hear exactly what you just said, Nick. So I appreciate that. Look, the favorite to win the Conn Smythe right now is Jordan Stahl, who won a cup at the age of 20, and now he's about to turn 38 years old. 5 straight games with a goal. I mean, my goodness, what do you make of this storyline?
He's been special, and what a cool story that he's doing it in Carolina. You mentioned the Stanley Cup that he won with the Pittsburgh Penguins much earlier in his career. He's a definition of brain and brawn. Massive guy. I had a chance to interview him when I was doing the Eastern Conference Final, and like, I've got pretty good sized hands, Spence, and like his has just swallowed mine up. Like he's been such a handful to cover, to defend, to hold up, to stop, and you mix that overwhelming strength that he plays with such an intense and immense hockey IQ. You've got a guy that is playing at a level that maybe he hasn't played at ever in his career, considering the goal scoring that he's had in this series. Not even just the 5 goals, but how about the faceoff, Don? He's always been a great faceoff guy, but he's at 68% in the Stanley Cup final. How about this? You want a little bit of history, a nugget that's going to make you sit there and chew on it?
Yes, sir.
Well, we haven't seen somebody score goals in the first 5 games of a Stanley Cup final in 70 years.
Jeez.
70 years. That's going back when there wasn't even color TV, Spence. Like you think, like what he's doing in terms of producing offense, but also leading this group as the captain. It has been amazing to see. And if the Carolina Hurricanes are able to close out and win the Stanley Cup on Sunday, to me, as you had mentioned, it is a foregone conclusion that Jordan Staal is going to be the Conn Smythe winner. And I think on the other side of the coin is if Vegas is able to surmount this comeback and find a way to come back in the series, win Game 6 and then win Game 7 in Carolina, I think Mitch Marner he's been spectacular. I mean, what an unbelievable story. He leaves Toronto. It was rough sledding there for the hometown kid. A lot of pressure. I think some undue, hatred is probably the best way to put it, sent his way. And yeah, did he always come up in the biggest of moments? There were some times where he came a little bit short, but boy, oh boy, was he ever one of the most elite players in the league when he was there. So all of a sudden now he's in Vegas, new lease on life, clean slate, playing on a team that has Stanley Cup pedigree. And look at what Mitch Marner has done here in the playoffs. I mean, he has just found a way to take over games. He's got, had a hat trick earlier in the series too. So, I think you look at both teams and yeah, you could point to this guy and that guy and say that guy's having a good series and this guy's having a good series. But for me, if you're looking for Conn Smythe nominees for both teams, it's Jordan Staal and it's Mitch Marner, depending on who ends up winning the Stanley Cup.
So John Tortorella gives the guarantee, Nick. He says, I'm leaving my clothes in Carolina. We're going to be back. We're going to find a way. What'd you make of that? Going out on a limb, what'd you make of that?
I love it. I love it because, look, I think John Tortorella, to me, is a hell of a hockey coach. Yes, does he rub some people the wrong way? Does he demand a lot from his players? Does he have an ability to go back at a media member if he doesn't like a question? Yes. But at the end of the day, if you know anything about John Tortorella, and all you got to do is go online and type in John Tortorella and then animals, he does so much work with animals, with horses, with dogs. He is a tremendous person. And you just look at what he's done this year. He came in with 8 games left in the regular season and completely turned Vegas around. And it's not even like he came in and he waved a magic wand and he said, we're going to change up our system. He has an ability to motivate men at the highest level and get the most out of them and push the right buttons. So no matter how it turns out, I hope he continues to coach in this league. Again, is he old school? Yeah, he is. Well, you know what? Last time I checked, sometimes a little old school is needed here in the new school because, there are times where you need a kick in the rear, figuratively speaking. You need a guy to hold you accountable. You need a guy to really let you know what's on his mind and not leave you in a gray area. So, and with all that being said, too, the guy that was let go, Bruce Cassidy, he is an absolutely tremendous coach. And what's gone on with him not being able to speak to Edmonton because Vegas hasn't allowed permission, that's a whole nother tangent and storyline. But right there, Tortorella, Bruce Cassidy, 2 unbelievable coaches that have won at the highest level, and 2 guys that in my eyes will and should have jobs in this league, for as long as they can and want, because I think the game is better for having those guys in it. But to the heart of your question, Spence, I love that because you got to be outward, because I'm sure he is very outward like that with his team behind closed doors. And for him to make it very known in the media, I think that gives even more positivity and energy to his group, knowing that if the coach is leaving the clothes in a hotel room, the players better do it too. And whenever it's bulletin board material, stuff like that, I love it as long as it doesn't cross any boundaries. And to me, that's a confident guy, confident in his team. Talking about what he wants and how he sees this playoff Stanley Cup final going the rest of the way.
So if I told you Colton Sissons was going to have as many goals as Jack Eichel during the playoffs, you probably would have told me I was crazy. And I did look it up, Nick. In 2023, when they won the Cup, he had 6. So it's not like he – and this is what he does. He also has 20 assists, so let's give him some credit for doing what he does. But 2 goals in the playoffs, I would imagine that's kind of surprising to you.
Yeah, and look, I think Jack Eichel first and foremost, if you just look at the kind of player, that he's been in his career, he had 27 goals this year, 28 last year, 30 the year before that, 27 the year before that. He had a 36-goal season in Buffalo. But to me, this is a guy that is an elite playmaker. He is the kind of guy that is always looking first to set up a teammate to make a pass. And sometimes that's just that's the inner dynamic and mindset mentality of a player is that, okay, well, even if there's a shot there, I'm going to try to wait, find a teammate, and then look for the play in behind. And he is one of the very best drivers and playmakers in the league. But, yeah, obviously you'd like some more goal-scoring production from him, no question. And could he be a guy that in the next 2 games could get 2 goals or 3 goals? Yeah, because that's the type of ability that he has, and he can kind of turn it on out of nowhere, even though you mentioned that the goal-scoring tallies have been quite low. You mentioned the 20 assists. To me, that just tells a story that, should there be a few more goals on there? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that tells a story of a guy that leans more facilitation as opposed to always looking for the shot.
So how does Vegas get this done coming up at home on Sunday night? They had, I think, 10 penalty minutes, and Carolina had a couple of power play goals.
Yeah,
so
very uncharacteristic.
Very
uncharacteristic because especially recently, but for most of their history, Vegas has been a team that has been pretty disciplined, especially considering the way that they play, where they've got some bruisers. And you mentioned Colton Sissons, who's a guy that plays the game the right way, he plays it hard. Keegan Kolesar is another one of those guys. Braden McNabb on the back end, who I can't even believe he's still standing up straight after taking that puck right in the face earlier in the series, which led to 20 or 30 stitches, and then he was back the next game. Pretty amazing hockey players in general and in the playoffs. But for Vegas, I think it's really good for them to have 2 days off today, off tomorrow, and then Game 6 at home in Vegas on Sunday. I think these are 2 days where I really don't think there's any major changes they need to make, Spence. I think it's just a couple of bounces and executing their game plan. That's what's going to be the difference, and finding a way to come through in the moments where they do get chances, because they had some chances last game they were not able to bury. I don't think that they should hate the way that they played. I really don't. I thought they had their opportunities, unable to convert at enough of a clip that they should have if they wanted to be in that game and find a way to win it. Another huge storyline here, Spence, is the status of William Karlsson. He is a guy that over the years maybe hasn't gotten as much notoriety as I think he should. An outstanding two-way center. And he took a pretty nasty collision, and I had heard online and seen that he actually left the arena to go get some more imaging done at a local hospital. So that's not good. And then I was listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast today with Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas, and they said, there is a possibility that there's something could be broken in terms of his arm. I mean, that's a massive loss. That's depth up the middle. That's a guy that goes both ways. He plays a very strong 200-foot game. And so when you're being without a guy like that, somebody's got to come in and make a difference. And the guys that are still in the lineup, they got to find a way to make up for the unbelievable efforts that he has brought all playoffs long. So I think the combination of having a couple of days just to rest, to get their minds right, and to know that the series isn't done. You win one game, and then it's up to anybody. And then it's the game that you dream about, Game 7, Stanley Cup final. Like, if you can't get up for that, then I question why you're even playing. So with all that being said, they need their best guys to come through. Now, you could say the same for Carolina. Svechnikov, Aho, they came alive last game. Both those guys haven't been playing. Are they hurt? Or I'm sure that there's probably something going on there. Again, nobody's healthy this time of the year, but for both these teams, but especially Vegas with backs against the wall, they need their top guys to be playing at levels that they haven't even played at in the playoffs so far. Guys like Marner, guys like Stone, like Eichel, Shea Theodore in the back end. And the last key I will leave you with, Spence, for Vegas, Carter Hart is going to need to be spectacular. Carolina can smell the blood in the water. They say the Stanley Cup is going to be in the building. They're going to be all revved up. But Carter Hart is going to need to make sure that any sort of leakiness that he's had early in the series is that he plugs those holes. Because I think if Vegas can find a way to win, a huge storyline will be Carter Hart and how well he's able to play in Game 6.
What's your gut tell you? Is Tortorella going to go get a suit, or are we done at Sunday night?
I'm always pushing for Game 7, man.
Yes, sir.
I am. I think when teams have their backs against the wall, John Tortorella won a Stanley Cup in 2006. There's a lot of pride in that room, and they're playing at home, and that's one of the more intense environments in the entire league. I think Vegas wins on Sunday, and boy, oh boy, appointment television, Game 7 Stanley Cup Final, Spence. How does that sound? That's what I'm hoping for.
That's all we want. Hey, before I set you loose, of course, let's do a little Mammoth, and then we'll let you get out of here. The way I'll ask the question is there anything to be learned from either of these two teams playing for the Cup that we could kind of apply to what the Mammoth need to do to kind of take that next step of growth next year?
Yeah, I think it's gaining the experience. And look, Vegas has gone through some trying times. Look, it's their third Stanley Cup final appearance in their 9 years as a franchise. That is immaculate. Like I don't really know. I'd love to compare that to other sports, the other three major sports, and see it in a team's first 9 or 10 years, 3 finals appearances. Like, it's pretty special what they've done. But there was also a time where they didn't make the playoffs, and they had to take a step back in order to jump forward. In Carolina, they're also a perfect example. The last 5 years, 6 years, everybody's been waiting. Can they get over the hump? Yes, they're gonna be a team that is a top 3 team in the league in the regular season, but when they get into the playoffs, they can't get over that hump. They can't win in the playoffs. Well, look what they did this year. They found a way to eventually get through it. They made some additions to their roster. They tried to get Mikko Rantanen, didn't end up working. So then they call an audible. Eric Tulsky, their general manager, brings in Logan Stankoven. They bring in Taylor Hall. What a playoff Taylor Hall has had. He's leading their team in goals with 12. In the goaltending position, well, we've already discussed that. And at times the bit of the circus that's been just in terms of one guy going in, Anderson getting hurt. This is even dating back for the last couple of years. They had Pyotr Kochetkov as well. So now Brandon Pussy has come in, and look what he's done. So I think all of that being said, when you kind of turn all of that and point the flashlight at the Utah Mammoth, is that I think they're right where they need to be. I really do. They're 2 years into this thing, and let's look at the rightful expectations where this team is at. Year one, let's be competitive. Let's be in the mix towards the end of the year. They were. At the conclusion of year one, going into the summer, Bill Armstrong, general manager and president of hockey operations, Chris Armstrong, they said very clearly, playoffs are our expectation. And look what they did in year two. Had a great regular season where there are ups and downs, yes, as is going to be the case for any team. They get into the playoffs. They win a couple of games, 3 home games in front of the best fans in the National Hockey League at the Delta Center, and they end up losing to a team that's 2 wins away from winning the Stanley Cup Final. So I don't think they're that far off, but to me, that just shows the progress. How about Andre Tourigny? There's another storyline mixed within this. Each of the last 6 years, his winning percentage has gone up. There's only 2 other coaches in the league's history that have done that in 6 consecutive seasons. So I think when you look at how the roster's been built, Cooley's going to be around for forever. Dylan Guenther, the same. Nick Schmaltz signs an 8-year deal. These are the building pieces. Karel Vejmelka's going to be around for another couple of years. So you're starting to build this team the right way. And could there be, and should there be, and will there be additions to the roster to get a little bit bigger, get a little bit more depth, especially through the middle of the ice? Yeah, I think that's something that is probably in this team's future. We're going to see how it all shakes out. I don't get paid the big bucks to make those decisions, but right now, when I compare the 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Final to the Utah Mammoth, I think that this team is very much on the right track. Especially considering how this team's success year in and year out, and in the first 2 years here in Utah, have continued to progress. So I think there's a lot to like right now. There's a lot to like about the vision moving forward. And my hope is that a couple of years from now, the Utah Mammoth are still playing in the playoffs because, they got better and better each year. And the last thing I will say is that the experience for some of these young guys, first real intense playoff action for Guenther, for Cooley, that is such a valuable experience because those guys know now what to expect. It's never going to get easier, but you develop the tools mentally and physically to know how to not just survive but thrive at the most important time of the season.
Nick, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate the time. Have an excellent weekend. Let's swing a golf club soon, okay?
The pleasure is mine, Spence. You got it, man. Keep in touch and keep up the great work.
The great Nick Olachek from the Utah Mammoth broadcast team. He's been doing some playoff hockey for the radio side of things at Olachek16 on social. He's on both Twitter and Instagram is where you find him. Always appreciate his time. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up on the other side, let's see, I don't know, a decade ago or so, the two biggest and most powerful figures in pro golf were Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. My, how things have changed. We'll do some golf with Paul Pugmire coming up on the other side. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the drive, then say goodnight at 6 on a Friday right here on ESPN 700. Got the forecast in front of me. It's 84 degrees and sunny, so there's no way Paul Pugmire is on the other end of this phone line, correct?
I'm actually here.
Oh, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Let's see, 84 tomorrow, 84 Sunday. What do we got on tap? Where are we swinging to this weekend?
There'll be a little golf this weekend. I'm actually playing in a tournament at Ochre Hills out in Tooele. Looking forward to that.
Very nice. All right, Paul. We need to start with some uncomfortable news here. Once upon a time, not that long ago, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods were the two best golfers on the planet. They were the two most powerful golfers in the PGA Tour ecosystem. And what a fall from grace. I mean, we've talked about Tiger. He's back from treatment, and hopefully he's getting better, and maybe we'll see him play soon. I don't know. But Phil Mickelson, the PGA Tour is not interested in him. Live Golf is crumbling right before his eyes. And now he has his membership at his own club revoked after an alleged misconduct with an employee. Penny for the thoughts of his bride. I don't even know what to ask you outside of your thoughts on an incredible fall from grace by a guy that a lot of people thought was as talented as anyone ever to pick up a golf club.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mind immediately went to Amy as well, his wife. She's a Salt Lake woman. Went to Skyline High. They met at ASU, and I've had a few moments with her here and there over the years. She is gracious and kind and lovely in every way, and my gosh, I hope she's okay. Phil,
as the story goes, and I can't corroborate any of this. I mean, I've got the athletics report pulled up. I know the Golf Channel did something on this too. I'm sure ESPN has it. He was in the middle of a round and was told that he had to exit immediately. And by the time the sun had set, this Farms Golf Club had taken down any picture of him. Like, there was no sign that he was ever there. I don't know, man. Like, these are all allegations. Everybody deserves due process. That's what America is founded upon. I understand that. But to take that type of divisive action, or I should say decisive action in that moment, it has to indicate these allegations are very, very serious.
Very serious, and we don't know exactly what they are, other that they involved inappropriate interactions or contact of some kind with a female employee. And one thing we do know, based on the actions the club took, is that the club leadership, in a position of knowledge, they believe the woman, which I think we should default to, and they felt they had enough to take action. They knew what it would be worldwide news. They know who Phil Mickelson is. They know that his prominence, and they knew that it would become a worldwide story, and it did immediately. And yet they still took the action. And so you're right. That tells us a whole bunch that we can just kind of wait to see details come out about. But it tells us a lot right there.
So with this news, you have the SEC insider trading scandal where he was found to have made some investments in order to pay back some gambling debts. The involvement with the Saudis, with Liv, everything that this situation has now manifested itself. Is there a way back at some point for Phil to be part of the PGA Tour family once again and be received, or do you feel like this ship has absolutely sailed?
I believe in redemption. I believe in second chances and third. I don't see a pathway back right now based on what we know. There might be things happen later. There might be new information. There might be new occurrences. Maybe Phil steps up and takes some responsibility for what is going on. He has not done a lot of that so far. But based on what we know today, I don't see a path.
All right, before we look at what's going on right now, let's look back a little bit as the memorial was last weekend, and JT Poston was able to get that done. I think a lot of people felt like it was a long time coming for this kid, yeah?
Yeah, no doubt. It wasn't. It's not a huge surprise to see JT play well and win. He is such a laconic personality. Even when he's in the spotlight, he's not in the spotlight. But he's a good player, heck, a player, and a terrific putter statistically, and just passing the sniff test and the eye test. He's one of the best putters on tour. It's a little surprising that he doesn't win more, but it's not a surprise when he puts it together and wins. I was very happy to see him get this tournament on this golf course. It, as we discussed previously, it's one of the it's not a major, but it's in the tier below that, and I was very happy for JT.
So, Tony, last week, we'll get to Tony this week. There's a good story and a bad story to tell, but Tony last week, top 30. It's not top 5, it's not top 10, but it's 140K and it's a little progress, yeah?
It absolutely is. And last week he put together 4 good rounds, which he wasn't able to do this week. I'm sure that's where you're going. That's not only frustrating, it's puzzling. But he still has not demonstrated an ability to go round to round, week to week so far this season, and we're getting into June now, right? But he very definitely has demonstrated the ability to put together good rounds. Okay, that's great. Fantastic. Step in the right direction. Now he's got to lace together 4 of them and then do it a couple of weeks in a row to get back to where he was, which is to say an upper echelon player on the world scene. He's not there yet.
So moving over to the national championship for our friends up north, the RBC Canadian Open. First of all, kind of give us a little background, a little history on the tournament, and then they're at Osprey Valley in Toronto, the North Course. Tell us about the track.
Yeah, first of all, history on the tournament. It's one of the great championships in the world. It is a national championship for a really terrific sporting nation that has produced some great golfers. Of course, our favorite Canadian is and always will be Mike Weir, who, an adopted Utahn who won the Masters in 2004. And Mike, his nationality of sporting play remains Canada, though he's very definitely a Utah resident. The tournament has always been very high on everybody's list. It is one of these events that just brings out great play from great players all the time. Osprey Valley is a fascinating golf course designed by Canadian architect Doug Carrick, inspired by Carrick's visit to Ireland, in particular Port Moronic, and it is one of these things that he was blown away by what he saw in Ireland, and he tried to mimic some of what was going on over there in Ireland, and he really developed a great facility at Osprey Valley.
Tell us about Ben James, leader at 10 under. Don't know anything about this kid.
Yeah, he is a great story, and so is the story that got him there. This is a success story from the PGA Tour. He is the leader, so therefore the winner of this year's PGA Tour University program, which is a point system for college players, and the player who finishes number 1 in the PGA Tour U, they call it, that player gets instant access to the PGA Tour. Well, James from Virginia, he finished up a terrific career, 4-year All-American at UVA, and he was this year's leader at PGA Tour U. He goes up to Canada, laid down a slick little 63 today, which he was chasing a 67 on Thursday. He very clearly a high pedigree player coming out of this terrific program that I so admire and really enjoy with getting the college players instant access. And he's making it pay. It would be fun to see what he does this weekend.
How many of the players who decided not to play this week are looking ahead to next week at Shinnecock?
All of them.
Okay.
Everybody. It's our national championship on one of the great golf courses in the world, a top 5 golf course in the world every year by every measure. And, U.S. Open at Shinnecock just doesn't get better than that.
Safe to say a lot of the guys going low this week probably will not go low next week. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, except we've got Brooks Koepka sitting at T7 up in Canada right now. Koepka won the last time that the U.S. Open was played at Shinnecock. Koepka seems to be trending. Now, he's always must-watch TV. He's always interesting. But with his whole background, LIV, coming back, playing his way back in, getting into form, seems to be in form up in Canada, heading to Shinnecock. Yeah, my eyes on Brooks Koepka this week.
Give me just, 3 to 5 names of players next week you think are going to be there on Sunday.
Well, you have to start the conversation with Scheffler. There's whether he does it or not, you have to start the conversation there. I want to see Brooks Koepka go back to Shinnecock and make some noise. I think that's going to be an awfully lot of fun. I've got my eye on Denny McCarthy, who won down at Black Desert. He's a power game, and Shinnecock wants that. I think that's going to be a long shot, but a player to keep your eye on. And then, of course, we all want to see Rory play well, don't we?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of mood he's in. If he acts like a baby, I don't know. It just depends on how he handles himself. Hey, before we find out what's going on the program tomorrow, a little birdie has informed me that our guy Paul Pugmire has become the latest recipient of the UGA Gold Club Award. Paul, I'm clapping in my studio. I'm clapping. Way to go, buddy. Congratulations. Well earned. Tell us about this, and what does it mean to you to be on this list?
I am deeply, deeply honored. The Gold Club is the UGA promotes it as its highest honor. I'll take them at their word. It's given to somebody who makes a difference in the game, and I'm deeply honored, deeply grateful, not only for this award, but for the things I get to do that allow me even to be considered. I get to run First Tee. I love the kids. I love that program. I love being able to do that. I get to be on the radio on ESPN 700 and talk about golf. And I'd be sitting around talking about golf whether I had a mic in front of me or not. So it's such a privilege, and I'm just deeply grateful for it.
Do you feel like I was snubbed?
I think that there's a lot of years that this is yet to come, and there's that you're going to be in consideration.
I'm obviously just joking, Paul. Happy for you. Happy for you. Nobody loves golf like Paul Pugmire. As I often say, find something to love the way Paul Pugmire loves golf. What's coming up on the show tomorrow?
There is a lot of junior golf going on in Utah right now. The UGA's Junior Championship was held today, finished up just this afternoon at Park Meadows. We're going to have winners on the show from that. And then tomorrow, Saturday, up at Bonneville, the Utah Golf Association's Junior Championship kicks off. So the elite junior players in the state are all going. Plus, we're going to have Zach Blair on the show. Zach Blair is U.S. Open savant, baby. He has an amazing ability to qualify for the U.S. Open. He qualified again this year, and he is going back to Shinnecock. And we're going to talk to Zach about getting through this grueling qualification process that he just does year and year, time and time again. It's an amazing thing. Zach Blair is on the show tomorrow.
Very nice. Paul, have a great show. Thank you for the time, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Spencer.
All right, Paul Pugmire, Utah Golf Radio. Before we break, it's time for another Uinta Golf PGA update. You can celebrate Father's Day this year at Uinta Golf. Unleash Dad's Swing for the all-new Titleist GTS drivers. Find the perfect GTS driver for Dad to gain superior distance, accuracy, and ball speed. Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there. The PGA Tour is up north for the RBC Canadian Open before the U.S. Open next week. Ben James is your leader at 10 under par. Tony Finau had an excellent day one, but will not be playing the weekend. Or will he? Is he at the cut line? Oh, wait. He actually might make the weekend. He's 2 under par for the tournament, 3 over today, and the projected cut line is 2. So if things stay as they are, Tony actually will play the weekend. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program on this Friday afternoon comes right next on ESPN 700. It is trophy season. NBA championship on the line. Can the New York Knicks close out their series against the Spurs tomorrow night in San Antonio? 6:30 tip between the Knicks and the Spurs. The Spurs are a 5.5-point favorite. As I always say, don't gamble on sports, but that's a pretty big line to me. And then, of course, what?
Nothing.
What'd you do?
You just said don't gamble on sports.
What'd you do?
That's all I was going to say.
What'd you do?
I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about some other folks.
Oh, just did like quarterbacks at Texas Tech?
Just in general, if you're an active athlete, maybe don't do it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's not a hot take. I mean, again, it's the one rule you're not supposed to break.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on this before we say goodnight? I feel like you have thoughts that you would like to express.
No, I was just trying to bring some brevity, some comedy to the program. My stance is not going to change on this, and it shouldn't. I mean, it's again, it is the one rule in the sports world to see Texas Tech not only continue, but to double down and triple down and quadruple down in the form of a 22-minute social media video where they just kind of regurgitated the talking points from the injunction and never said anything about why the player should be eligible or should play. It just continues to be a really, really silly saga that I think is pardon the pun here, a gamble in it of itself, where Texas Tech is going all in on who I think to be a barely above average quarterback, and at stake is not only like truly the product and the integrity of college football, but also maybe their place in the future of college football. As we know, these next several years are an informal and unofficial and I guess up in the air. I want to say, you're looking forward to potentially being a part of a super league, a super conference of some sort. And this public display, I don't think is a great idea when that is kind of the goal. So if this is an audition for the big leagues that we most assume is coming, I think it's a gamble that may end up, even if you do get your quarterback for 2026, 2027, may end up being really bad for your university and your athletic department in the future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And I thought Kamrani stuff was pretty interesting today. Let me ask you, because I know you've dug into this stuff and you follow it closely. Let me ask you what I asked Chris. Because now we have the Oklahoma Attorney General chiming in, battling with the Texas Attorney General, which I learned today, that's a bad dude. How do you think this ends? Like, let's say Houston game, Big 12 opener, when he is cleared to play. Is he under center for Texas Tech?
I mean, I don't know that I would be, to give you like a definitive answer, I would be well with outside of my depth, right?
Yeah.
This is, and again, this is kind of unprecedented territory. I think that, as Chris mentioned, there are several off-ramps that could still be taken, and I think would be the smart way to go for Texas Tech. If you really want to support this kid, be behind him in a personal manner, in a substantive manner, I'm all aboard. I'm all for that. Paying for his treatments, going through the process. But if your goal in this entire process is just to get him under center for you, you're undermining, again, the cardinal rule in college football and in sports in general. And I think that there's still a chance that Texas Tech does go in that direction. But if they do, then I do think that you will see the type of litigation that you're seeing from Texas Tech this week. I shouldn't say from Texas Tech, from Jeffrey Kessler, from Brennan Sorsby, and in some form of proxy, whether paying them or otherwise, Texas Tech as well. They can't really distance themselves from this case anymore. They've tried. That it's just not a thing. But if they do end up putting him under center, potentially while he's under investigation. We don't know that, but he broke crimes. So we'll see if that it becomes a thing. I do think you'll see, whether it's states in other conferences states in the Big 12 conference or the Big 12 in and of itself, I think there will be further litigation, and it will be from those parties, from the parties that believe that they have now been wronged. And to be honest with you, maybe that includes sports books. Like, to be honest with you, that's a part of this as well, where you're not just going at the integrity of the game, the history of college football that we know has never gone in this direction. You're also going against like the business credentials of now sports books who you defrauded in several ways. So, no, I think that if Brendan Sorsby plays, I think he's going to receive a whole bunch of backlash in the public court of opinion, but you're also going to see more lawfare and more litigation in the actual court. Not of opinion.
Every day that passes, there's another wrinkle to the story. So if you missed it, Oklahoma's Attorney General contacted Brett Yormark in the Big 12, encouraging the Big 12 to suspend him. And then the Texas Attorney General, who basically is a criminal. I mean, look, most politicians are, certainly right now. He chimed in too. So we'll see how this plays out. But again, U.S. men's national team tonight against Paraguay as their journey in the World Cup begins. The Knicks will try to win the NBA championship for the first time in 53 years on Saturday night. And then Carolina will try to get their second Stanley Cup in their history in the first in 20 years on Sunday night. But, Porter, you know what events I am looking forward to most over the next month and a half out of all of the events we just talked about? The Freedom 250 concert.
Me too.
In Washington, D.C. Have you been following this?
A little bit. I know it's tied in with the UFC event and all the above, but a bunch of folks backing out of said concert. It appears.
So even if the initial lineup just went ahead and played, it would have been hilarious. But Morris Day and The Time are the latest to pull out from the event, joining Martina McBride, Brett Michaels, the Commodore's young MC. So coming up, this concert will include Flo Rida, Vanilla Ice, Lee Greenwood, Christopher Macchio, and my favorite might be Fab Morvan of Milli Vanilli.
There we go.
Milli Vanilli was never a real group, by the way.
They were the ones that were lip syncing, right?
Yes, I believe Milli or Vanilli is no longer with us. I don't know which one.
Okay.
Shout out to that guy. Rest in peace, bud. So they got the second half of an act that was never real and lip synced to join Flo Rida, Lee Greenwood, Christopher Macchio, and Vanilla Ice.
And yeah, you mentioned the folks that backed out. They were kind of sold on, at least according to their statements, they were all kind of sold that this was a birthday party for America, that it would be a nationwide type event with a bunch of different acts coming together for it. And then when they got the itinerary, it's just a political rally. So
good. You get the second half of Milli Vanilli. It was never even a group. I don't want to be indelicate or insensitive. So before we say goodnight, rest in peace to either Milli or Vanilli, whichever one didn't make it through.
Of course.
We're with you. All right. When we talk on Monday, are we going to be talking about the NBA champion New York Knicks?
Boy, do I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go right down to San Antonio and decide this one without making it any more interesting. I think it would be really good for my health if that were the case. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some sort of answer for San Antonio in the same sense, Spence. To lose Game 4 like that, there may be some carryover. I'm going to say I think so. I think when we are talking on Monday, I'm going to be wearing orange and blue, and we'll be celebrating.
If the Knicks win on Saturday night, I will do the show on Monday in a Knick jersey.
I'll join you.
Okay. I have neglected to do that mostly out of superstition, and I'm not a masochist, but part of me wants to see a Game 6 at the Garden. It would be nervy, dude. It would be
the other
nervy.
Part. There's a part of me that does want New York to experience this. There's a part of me after the last few weeks that wants me Maybe to avoid it.
Yeah. It's not a good look. Why are we throwing eggs at other players, by the way?
I don't know.
Let alone beating up people with Spurs jerseys.
Especially
Give me a break.
after a win?
Yeah.
Go celebrate.
Yeah.
Go have fun.
No, I'm with you.
I don't know. It's odd. I love New York for how invested they are, and that's a big reason I've always loved New York sports in that way, like how real it is to them. It's a little bit European soccer feel. Let's stop that at like inflicting harm on other people.
It has been very disappointing. All right, I'm going to get out of here and go listen to a little Millie or Vanilli, whichever one is still with us. But Porter, what's coming up on a Monday edition of The Drive?
Monday edition of The Drive will recap the weekend that was in the NBA, in the NHL, and the PGA Tour, all of the above. Of course, World Cup as well. Richard Smitty Smith, Pablo Mastroeni, Tommy Beer, rather, will join the program. It's been a while since we got him live from New York, and we'll go from there.
There you go. So a jam-packed, really exciting sports weekend ahead. U.S. men's national team tonight, NBA Finals on Saturday, Stanley Cup Finals on Sunday. You can hear it all on ESPN 700. Special thank you today to Chris Camerani, Dave McMiniman, Nick Olachek, Paul Pugmire. If you missed any of the sound from the show today, go to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Download the mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy yourself. Be good to yourself and be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a Monday Drive. And as always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.